for the first time ever, start a minute early. Okay. I'll call the meeting to order and Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cash.
Please stand. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas tardes al público presente. Tenemos los aparatos para oír la interpretación de esta junta. Si así lo desean, estamos por esas puertas dobles. Se pueden comunicar con nosotros. Gracias.
Thank you. We have headsets for the hearing impaired if you need them. Dr. Cash, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herron. At this time, I'd like to ask Alta Vista student Colette Brown to come forward and provide our Students Board Report. Welcome, Colette.
Hi, I'm Colette Brown. I'm from Middle College. So Dos Pueblos High School, Dos Pueblos is having its annual open house for incoming freshmen on January 15th. Additionally, in an effort to give prospective students a closer view of the school, we are also having students shadow current students. The Equity and Excellence in Education Committee at DP formed a student-led subgroup, which is known as the Action Committee. The first meeting was on Monday, January 5th. This committee, as well as other newly formed committees at school, including collaboration with COAST and the Nutrition Task Force, are aiming to gain representation from a wide range of students at school. The Engineering Academy's robotics team has started its season and is aiming to compete in the upcoming first robotics competition, which happens in 6 weeks. The leadership class decorated the cafeteria with paintings representing various holiday-themed drawings right before the break started. Additionally, the leadership class is planning a team-building day by going to a ropes course in the next month and is also planning an end-of-the-semester awards banquet for the members of the class. DP's December Toy Drive recently wrapped up in association with the Community of Friends in the Unity Shop. Over 50 families were served for the Community of Friends, and over 100 toys were donated to the Unity Shop. In addition, our school's canned food drive finished recently as well, with 500 cans donated to the Unity Shop. Lastly, the penny drive was finished right before the break started, and DP raised over $2,000 for the Unity Shop. San Marcos High School. One acts will take place January 15th, 16th, and 17th in the San Marcos Auditorium at 7 p.m. One acts are a series of short plays lasting 10 to 20 minutes, performed in the round. Comedy, drama, and everything in between. The one acts are free to attend, but seating is limited. If you have never been to the Thunder Hut for a local rivalry basketball game, you should attend. San Marcos will be hosting Santa Barbara on Wednesday, January 14th, and will host Dos Pueblos on Friday, January 23rd, and the events are not to be missed. Our 8th grade open house will take place January 28th at 6 p.m. The winter semi-formal will take place on Saturday, February 7th. Santa Barbara High School. Santa Barbara High is promoting No Name Calling Week from January 19th to the 23rd. By posting flyers and posters around the school and encouraging students to meet new people through a Meet New People campaign, SBHS is working towards bullying prevention and creating a safe school environment for everyone. The Computer Science Academy is taking a field trip at the end of January to Silicon Valley to learn firsthand about the industry center of startup companies. MAD Home Building, January 19th through the 23rd. MAD students, contractors, and volunteers will transform the lives of 6 families by building them homes in the communities surrounding Valladolid, Mexico. Over the course of 3 days, students will pour a concrete foundation, frame, stucco, and roof a small house. Students will experience empowerment by making a meaningful difference in the lives of others. Students will also gain empathy for those they are serving by experiencing life without electricity, running water, or permanent shelter. The cross-cultural interaction will foster appreciation for our global community, and working as a team will strengthen the MAD Academy community environment. La Cuesta Continuation High School. Leadership students are running a coin drive this I Heart My Health Week. Each day, students are directing an activity at lunch to help their peers live heart-healthy lives. Thursday, January 15th, leadership students are hosting a movie night to help raise funds for grad night. Alta Vista Alternative High School. Quetzal students submitting a short documentary to the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. Quetzal students helped create the film about their horticulture project. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you. Great job, Colette. Thank you very much, Ms. Wagonett, for bringing such a great student in front of us this evening. Mr. President, it's tax season. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And for the 18th year, 18 years, Santa Barbara High School's Don's Net Cafe will again serve the community by providing free volunteer income tax assistance. That will begin on January 29th, starting at 3 o'clock and at 6 o'clock, where we will have IRS-trained students available in room 70 to help our community fill out their income tax returns. As you heard, No Name Calling Week, a bullying prevention initiative, is taking place across the nation and in our schools next week. We're excited about that. And you also heard our open houses are starting this place and in February, and the secondary school dates and times are posted on our website. As board members and the community are aware, the governor this past week released his proposed budget for the 15-16 fiscal year, and a reminder that that fiscal year begins actually on July 1st, 2015 and ends on June 30th, 2016. In a quick review, the budget process only begins with the governor's proposal. And then we have a period of negotiations between the governor's office, legislators, the Department of Finance, the Legislative Analyst's Office, which results ultimately in the revision of his proposal in May, called the May Revise. And that revision is also based upon any changes in the tax receipts, or proposed or potential tax receipts. And then in June, the budget is passed by the legislature, but even though they pass it, the governor still has to sign it. So it's not a full budget until the governor has signed it. I thought it would be important just to highlight a couple of things in his proposal that he sent out in January. Probably the most important thing to us in our district is continuing funding of what's called the GAP in local control funding formula. And he's proposing putting $4 billion statewide into that. That would bring us up to 32% in closing the gap between where we were in 2007 and 8 and where we're supposed to be in 2020 and 21. So it's really important that while that is a lot of money, and we're going to be very thankful, and we're going to present to the board what we think will be a great way in which to support students in our community, we have a long way to go just to get back to 2007, 2008. It also includes special growth funding for special education at $15 million, a 1.58% cost of living adjustment for child nutrition, that's the one that affects us, increased funding both inside Prop 98 and outside Prop 98 for full-day state preschools, mandate reimbursement of about $1.08 billion, which will be used to support Common Core and Next Generation Standards implementation. We'll continue with the energy efficiency grants that you're going to hear about later this evening. Also proposing a unique way to continue to fund what we think is very important, and that's career technical education through a matching grant process to the tune statewide of about $250 million. So we'll wait and see now what happens from this point forward, and we know it'll be an exciting process as the legislature brings forward their proposals and negotiating with the governor on what will ultimately be the budget that the state will adopt that will inform us on what we can and can't do for our students in the 15-16 school year. There's going to be a dyslexia discussion on January 22nd in the Parent Resource Center from 5 to 6:30 p.m. I want to let everyone know our transfer application period is now underway. The application and the timelines are on our website and available in our Office of Student Services. Our schools and district office will be closed this Monday in remembrance of a true hero in American history, Martin Luther King Jr. I also want to acknowledge publicly the incredible Academy Showcase that Barbara Kiani and Mitch Tarina were the primary people that made it happen, along with the directors of all of our specialized secondary school programs, did this past week. It was a tour de force. We had between 1,300 and 1,400 families attend. Quite frankly, Ms. Kiani and I haven't talked to Mr. Trina yet about it, we're kind of thinking, well, gosh, what do we do next year? Do we have enough space? So it was fantastic. I know board members attended. Really want to acknowledge Ms. Kiani and Mr. Torina's incredible work in making that happen. It was a great night for our community. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board comments and correspondence. Dr. Voss?
I know, and I think almost all of us, or probably all of us, attended the Academy showcase that happened at World War I Showgrounds. I just want to note that there were a lot of people. I was talking to Mitch when I was there, Mr. Trina, and I think your count was, what, 500 or so, give or take, at that time? Yeah. And so you were one, and I think that was double the amount of people. So there was at least 1,000 people that attended, and yes, it was well attended. So I was quite pleased with that, and it was just it was a great night to see all the parents really engage with their students, and then trying to figure out which one suited their particular student the best. It's quite interesting. I talked to a few parents, and they were like, I don't know. So it was great. Thank you.
There were just a tremendous number of things happening since our last meeting, and I'll just run through a few of them. Lacumba Junior High School had a ribbon cutting for the new auditorium. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely beautiful. And by the way, can you put back up the website? Dr. Cash referred to the website for information. Maybe the public can see that's not it, but you'll find it. But the auditorium is beautiful. Since I graduated from there some 60 years ago, I remember it just like it was then. Not really, but it was beautiful. I did attend the Wellness Committee, and they're going to be on the agenda tonight, and there's several members here. I have to tell you, a lively discussion with representatives from most all the schools, and so they're taking that job very seriously, and I really appreciate everything that goes into that committee. The Academy Showcase was unbelievable. I mean, the excitement level was dramatic. During Christmas, I happened to go to Farmers Market, as I usually do, and the Santa Barbara High School a cappella madrigals were singing. And yes, the music was beautiful, but if you watch the kids and the parents walking up and putting money into the violin case, the looks on their faces, listening to that Christmas music by the madrigals was just unbelievable. You could sit there and just watch it forever. And so I think seeing the kids see that was more impressive to the kids than actually the money they raised, because of the response that they got at the farmers market. And the correspondence, I have received a letter from Lanny Ebenstein, and for the board's reference, they may have seen also an article he wrote in the Santa Barbara News Press, in which he says that he and a group of citizens would like to appear before the board and make a presentation regarding all of our portables. And so later on, when we get to future meetings, agenda items, I will be asking to consider a workshop on facilities for that purpose. Plus, we had scheduled a community workshop at one point. It was canceled. So for a lot of various reasons, when we get to there, I'll be asking to see if there's an interest in giving this group of community people a chance to make a presentation on portables. I think that's all for me. Public comments. Do we have any public comments? No public comments. Acceptance of donations.
I'll move to accept with gratitude.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consent calendar.
Mr. President, we need to remove, district staff needs to remove E10 from the consent agenda. A revised MOU will be provided to the board at the next board meeting that accurately reflects the dates.
I'd like to pull item E8. And I'll move to approve.
Let me see if I may have one. E13. And I would like to make a comment. There's a revised item under the approval of contracts.
It's E17.
E17. One item was removed from that agenda item regarding scoreboards at Dos Pueblos. And I'd like to make a comment on E19, just for the public. That's a revised 2014-2017 collective bargaining agreement. It was presented and approved at a previous meeting, and turned out there was a few pages in there that were not correct, that the public did notice. And so this is a change to that agreement, so anybody who was interested before should go in and look at this new document. Okay, motion?
I'll move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carried. So E8 and E13 will come back at the end of the meeting. There is no public hearing needed tonight, so we'll go to G, action item. We have 4 disciplinary cases.
On item G1 for student discipline in case number 2014-15-01, I move to approve the hearing panel's recommendation for a suspended expulsion for 1 school year.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.
And on item G2, in case number 2014-15-08, I move to approve the stipulated agreement for a suspended expulsion for 1 school year.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And can I just clarify for 01, did I say that it was a suspended expulsion?
Yes, you
You
did.
did, good. Just to be really clear. And in case for G3, item 2014-15-11, I move to approve the stipulated agreement for a suspended expulsion for 1 school year.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And in case, item number G4, case number 2014-15-12, I move to approve the hearing panel recommendation for a full expulsion for 1 school year.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. For minute purposes, this differs a little bit from what the printed document is that we have, but what we did is correct. It's what the intent was of these were not changes to anything. We just made some changes to the printed document to go along with what we got in writing. Item G5, School Boards Association appointing Board Member Monique Limon as a delegate.
I'll make a motion to elect Monique Limon as, for our nomination for the board member to the California School Boards Association.
Second.
Discussion? I don't know why she wants to do it, but all in favor?
I think it's great. She'll be great.
She's up in Sacramento now, by the way. That's why she's not here. So she's fighting for us up there right now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Good for her.
I'll let her know she
Yeah.
got it. Okay. And thank you, Dr. Cash. We were under a time element on that, and Dr. Cash was able to get it in there in time. G6, approval of Memorandum of Understanding between the teachers for the study of educational institutions and Santa Barbara Unified School District for the Teaching Fair Act. Dr. Cash?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'll ask Ms. Dr. Drotti to come forward and make this presentation.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Cash. Yes, we've had some conversations with the high school principals and elementary principals about our institution of the FAIR Act and development of a curriculum that will support the FAIR Act, and we've identified an organization, the Teacher for Education Institution, as an organization that can assist us in developing the necessary curriculum to accomplish the goals for the FAIR Act. And what you see before you in the MOU is basically the understanding of what they will provide for the district and how much we are willing to pay for their service. And the goal is to have some professional learning this spring and also during the summertime. And we will continue, if those go well, we will continue the arrangement between us and that organization. With that said, I'll leave it up for questions.
Questions?
Well, I don't have any
Parker?
questions, just in comments, in that what I've seen so far has been really impressive, what they've done, and really the issue has been making sure that they have a good level of teacher participation so that our students really benefit, and that sort of snowballs so that it's being implemented fully.
Absolutely.
Do our teachers get compensated for attending?
If we are going to have any kind of training, right now, you didn't see it there. They just gave us the cost of how much, but if there are going to be trainings during Saturdays, which some junior highs and high schools are interested in, or some elementary schools, we will have to compensate the teachers for attending the trainings then. But otherwise, if it's within the school day, if it's in a pull-out situation, they wouldn't be compensated. And any training that we have in the summertime, obviously the teacher will be compensated for attending.
Dr. House?
Do you know if, as part of this agreement, the contractor is proposing to do some feedback surveys, anything in terms of that, just to kind of modify the curriculum as it goes forward, if we to come back to it, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. For your knowledge, this isn't the first time we've worked with this organization. They have held, for the last 2 years, they've held some trainings for our secondary schools, and it was upon a request of the principals and the teachers that they returned to continue to support us. And a part of that had to do with them, our feedback based on their survey of the trainings we've had in the past. So we're very confident that this is what the teachers want.
Thank you.
I will move to approve the MOU between the teachers for the study of educational institutions and the Santa Barbara Unified School District for the Teaching Fair project.
Second.
Second by Dr. Paz. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And by the way, all of these motions and approvals are 4-0 with one absent. Well, so far, 4-0 with one absent.
Thank you.
Item number G7, second reading and approval of Board Policy 5117, inter-district attendance.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This matter is back before you. Hopefully the changed language reflects the input from the board, and Mr. Trina is here to present those changes, and we'll have Mr. Rickman put them up on the screen.
Mr. President and esteemed board, I wanted to mention that on page 3, in regards to the language that we had submitted, right under the heading of term of transfer, that according to Ed Code 46600A1, we would need to have an agreement with a district in order to have that student not reapply on a yearly basis for a transfer. And currently, we have no such agreements with any of our surrounding districts.
Thank you. That answers one of my questions.
Great.
We have one public comment.
We have one public comment, and that is from Colleen Million, the principal at OAS. And as she's coming up, I would like to just make a mention that OAS did lose its founder, 30-year veteran of OAS, and that school, Gwen Phillips. And I know it's hard on the school, and she'd meant so much for you, for the school, that's for sure. And she was a wonderful lady.
Yes, I want to let you know we'll be keeping you in the loop on when we're going to have a special gathering for her. We're looking at doing this next month, in February. The date is tentative right now, but it will be on a weekend. I think we're choosing to do it on her birthday. So we'll keep you in the know on that.
you.
And I just wanted to come here tonight and thank you, Board, and Dr. Cash, for, and all of you who have put your thoughts into thinking about this interdistrict transfer situation for all of us. And I'm particularly pleased to see that OAS was given that special language pertaining to the 25 students, and to allow people who want to come in by choice, and even if they don't live within the school district. So I wanted to appreciate you for considering that, and I'm excited about all the work we need to do to get that happening. But once again, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No. To the board? Ms. Parker?
All right, I really appreciate the work that's been done on this, and of course I have some suggestions. One of the things that we didn't talk about in a global sense was this whole hardship piece. And the reason we had put the hardship piece into 5117 originally was because we were really concerned about the impact of the costs on the district. And so I feel like with leaving this hardship, all these hardship criteria, that we're tying it back to the financial piece instead of sort of moving forward, which is, we have limited cases, but it's not about money anymore. And so I would actually suggest that, as it's written, and if Mr. Rickman would scroll it up just a little bit, it comes across as being very limited as to who can come in, and it's only for the 100 students, which I had personally intended to be sort of broad-based, but it's only district employees, it's only siblings, it's now you've gone a little bit too far. It's only children of City College employees and then students of hardship. And my intention was more for it to be district employee children, then siblings of students, then children of City College employees, and then third would be all other students. That we didn't really need to have all these, convoluted parameters around hardship. So my suggestion that we go would just be that we go A, B, and then C, all other students in terms of enrollment priority. And then if there's a hardship, they're just going to go through the regular lottery process the same as anybody else. I mean, the hardship cases that we've gotten are most of them have been really about, I work in the district, boundaries, things like that. And I think that there are a lot of people that will want to transfer in on that basis. I would also suggest that we don't need number 4, that it's enough to put that language in number 2, so that we would say, if you scroll a little bit up to 50 elementary students, how did I put it? With the total includes up to 25 spaces specifically dedicated for open alternative school, and any remaining spaces for secondary students, instead of and 50 secondary students, because that way we can go up to 100 students. If there are fewer than 50 elementary, that gives us the wording that we need to make sure that it could be like 30-70 if it just happens to be that way, but would give priority to having 50 students, 25 dedicated to OAS. If I look down to everything in number 4, it applies in number 2. We have 25 spaces dedicated to OAS. First priority for their enrollment in a lottery would be siblings of students currently enrolled in the district. We can't do the once an interdistrict transfer to OAS is approved anyway, because they're going to fall under that same ed code provision if we don't have an interdistrict transfer with their district, so we can't do that. So it just seems to me that we can roll it into number 2 and be less complicated. The other thing that I would note is on the appeal section. And what page is that on? There it is, 2 of 4. We have so many issues with the County Board of Education and their appeal process, and here we make it really clear that the appeal process, you can't put in, you can't provide new information, and then, they go to the county board, they provide all sorts of new information, they don't bother, they can't present it to us anyway, and I feel like there's kind of this sense of the county board being a little bit of a soft touch on interdistrict transfers. And so I just want to be sure, I know that the county board is in the process of revising their policy on this, and so I think that this is fine, I just think that we may need to come back to it, even within the next few months, if the county board, if we just need to be sure that we're aligning with the county board if they change their policies in the way that they look at appeals. So that's just kind of a heads up on that section.
Any question?
Ms. Adelson?
Yes. So I'm reading, so I take it this is each year, each enrollment year we're talking about?
Correct.
Correct. And so potentially this could get up to be a sizable number of kids.
Yes.
Okay. And also your comment at the beginning about getting permission from other districts.
In order for them to be able to transfer, basically a one-time transfer that lasts 5 years.
And then at 5 years, then they have to reapply to that
Right.
district to allow them.
So if they came in elementary, and then if we had that agreement in place, they could stay for 5 years. After that 5 years, we'd have to have them reapply. And then we'd actually look at the MOU, the agreement that we would have with that neighboring district as well.
I see. And if that was declined by the other school, then they would no longer be able to attend, or?
Right.
Okay.
They would stay in their home district.
And what parameters, or how could that necessarily be declined? I mean, the other district, say, becomes an ADA model and wants their student to stay?
Correct.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that we not make any change to the term of transfer?
No, I'm not making that suggestion.
But you're not?
No.
So you would rather have us change the language and then go after the MOUs?
No, I would have it, you decide on whether or not that is something you want to do with the neighboring district. I believe that, in case what Ms. Idelson was saying, is they will be happy to send their students to us. And on a regular basis, yearly. So having an agreement that says they get to stay for 5 years, I don't think it's going to change the number of applicants we get for that transfer.
So you're suggesting that we possibly make the changes as recommended here and then go after MOUs?
With the understanding that, legally, we can't do it with any district we don't have an MOU.
Okay.
And maybe we could put that language in, just as students need not reapply for readmission to the districts prior to each school year if there is an existing MOU with the home district, something like that.
A lot of changes. Getting back to your original thought about eliminating 4, so if we have the language that changes the potential of, if every student who came to OAS from one of the adjoining school districts, and we had an agreement with that school district, they could then be assured that they could stay. I guess a question I have, Dr. Cash, for you is, none of this can take place until you've placed every student who's applied to our district. Is that correct? And that we have this PI, program improvement situation coming up. And so until all of the students within our district are placed in schools, we don't know if we have room anyplace.
Well, remember, this is, except for the OAS, which is specifically called out, their inter-district transfer is to our district. It's not to a specific school in our district. So, yes, in-district students are placed prior to inter-district transfers.
But if we won't know if there's space even at OAS until everybody's been placed where they want to go.
Well, yes, that could happen sometime in the
So-
spring.
So we have the application deadline of the 15th, then you're going to probably have to place everybody who's asked for a transfer that are PI,
Correct?
and then the schools will have to have a lottery, if those who need a lottery,
Correct?
so that, this is a long process before inter-district transfer students would know whether or not they can come to our district.
In the elementary, for sure, but not in the
Not
secondary.
Secondary, okay. So even with OAS, they won't know where their openings are until it's all
Correct.
done. So it's not like they can say to a prospective family today that, hey, apply and you'll get in.
They'll get into the district.
But if they want OAS,
They may not get into
and
OAS.
so they may not
Correct.
know. And then, as I understand it, an inter-district transfer, if a school accepts one, let's just say a school has one opening, they take one of the inter-district transfers. And then next year, there's 5 new kids in the neighborhood who want to go to the school. Would that even though we say they can stay, would they be asked to leave?
They can stay in the district. Remember, that's the
In the district.
key element here, is that while they may be assigned to a school, as long as there's space within the district, they could be reassigned to another school. If there is no space at any school site, then we could not accept them.
And that applies to OAS too.
Correct.
So for OAS to be able to say, come to our school, you will get in, and you can stay in, is probably not really truthful.
Well, it's not a guarantee.
Not a guarantee. Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay. So, Ms. Parker, can you go through those changes?
My suggestion is that number 2 change so that within the parentheses, it says, the total includes up to 25 spaces specifically dedicated for open alternative school, then end the parentheses, and any remaining spaces for secondary students. Then A stays the same, B stays the same, but then there's a C that says all other students. Then number 4 is eliminated. Below that, the entire section on extraordinary hardship exemption is eliminated. And then in the there's one other place where there's a referral to the hardship exemption, and I'm trying to figure out where that is. It's under the superintendent's placement.
Second paragraph under application below, review
Okay.
and process.
Yeah, so that would be eliminated as well.
And then we'd also add the language under term of transfer that recognizes we have to have an existing MOU with the
Correct.
district.
Yep.
Ms. Idelson?
So what I'm feeling with all this is the floodgates will open. I mean, and I feel, as far as the secondary, will we, if, from what Ms. Parker just described, if, the OAS reaches 25 and no more elementary school spaces are available, then the rest go to secondary, junior high and high school. So then how do you deal with the student coming in, and we have currently an open secondary system? Do you give the residents to that enrollment to our district priority over the students who are the inter-district transfer students?
Well, right now, there is no school that's closed.
Right.
To intra or inter, well, to inter there is, but to intra in the secondary schools,
Right.
every application is approved.
Okay, but now
Would
we're...
be approved.
Well, yes, and has been for probably 2 decades.
But-
Oh, you
Not
weren't here?
inter-district.
There was one.
Intra.
Intra, yes.
Okay, intra, I'm saying, so what I'm asking is, okay, we've allowed the intra-district to go wherever they apply within our secondaries, but by doing this, now you're bringing the inter-district, and we're also allowing them to go everywhere, correct?
No, they're just, they will
Their
receive
space.
admittance to the school district. They will express a school preference, and hopefully we'll be able to accommodate that.
Okay. So if the secondary schools start filling up with the intra-district transfer situation, will they get priority over the inter?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that,
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we need to put a sentence to that effect in this policy?
Well,
Just at the very
by law, they're entitled to it because they are residents.
So we don't need to spell it out at the beginning of the inter-district policy?
I think it's on a space available basis in number 2.
Okay, so we just leave it that as, okay.
I
well, I was just going to add, what about a sibling? So say I have 2 children and I'm coming in with and I have one going to DP and I'm a inter-district transfer, and then all of a sudden it's full with I'm just
Right.
thinking there could be some
I think we're
aspects to this
probably
that-
years down the road for that to occur, and if we got to the point where we were looking at capping the enrollment at any one of our secondary schools, that would be a conversation that I would need to have with the board. I'd need to let you know, one school's at 2,600 and the other 2 are at 1,800. We really need to do something about, or make a decision about whether we're going to continue to allow intra-district transfers to our high schools or whether we're going to set some enrollment caps for our high schools.
And then also with the academies, some of them being impacted at this point too, with long waiting lists, does the inter-district transfer have the same priority as, or are they a equal student to the
No,
students?
our resident students are...
Are priority?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
They will be placed prior to inter-district transfer students.
For academies?
For schools.
Okay.
Academies have all of our academies have kind of a different time frame for how they go about their process. So unless we were to standardize that process across the district, that'll still happen. So
I do recall a couple years ago, I believe, that Dos Pueblos had lotteries for its enrollment. It hadn't reached its capacity, and it wasn't that long ago.
well, I think this superintendent would have a different perspective on that than previously.
Okay, that clarifies
Because when
that.
I was the principal there, we had over 2,400 students, and we were not capped. And I know DP was not at 2,400 students after I left, which was in 2004.
Okay. Good, that's good to know, because I know we did have a lottery there one year. And I can't tell you how happy I am that hardship has been removed if we pass this motion. That's been something I have not liked since day one, so I appreciate that you brought that up. Anything further? Is this something that we can make a motion on and approve, even because this is the second reading?
Well, we can, and I'll go ahead and do that I'll move that we approve Board Policy 5117 as amended.
second.
Discussion? Once it's all written out, Mr. Trino, can you run it by Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Thank you.
You don't need to run it by Ms. Parker, but you can send it to everybody.
We'll review the tape
Okay.
and make sure it reflects what was
All
stated.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And thank the OAS staff and people for their diligence on this and being so civil. Appreciate it very much. Item G8, second reading and approval of Board Policy 7215, fundraising for the purpose of augmenting bond and capital funds.
At the board's request, language was changed on the last sentence. The word "may" was stricken, and the word "shall" was substituted regarding how fundraising proposals would be reviewed.
Ms. Parker?
I'll just say, even with shall, and I think that this is an important change, as small as it is so easy to really not look at everything you think you have and you haven't. So I hope that this helps, but I recognize its limitations.
Do I have a motion? Dr. Paz?
I make the motion to approve the Board Policy 7215 as amended.
I'll second it.
Well, as the policy is, as the word is changed, the motion is,
As proposed.
okay, as proposed, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item G9, approval of new classified job description, lead food service worker.
Would ask Mr. Tangway to come forward and make this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Once again, the highly energetic Nancy Weiss, who never stops innovating, not for a minute, came to me with a proposal to create this job description in order for her to continue to expand the evening supper program, which I understand is going quite well. She's serving a lot of people at Franklin, and now wishes to expand the program to La Cumbre and also the Boys and Girls Club. So what she needed was a job description that sort of met that program's requirements. This is what we came up with. CSEA had no objection. So we're looking for approval, and then we'll begin recruiting.
Discussion? Dr. Paz?
Make the motion to approve the new classified job description, lead food service worker.
I'll second that.
Under discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Did we have another public comment come forward? Did someone bring up a slip for something?
No,
No? Okay.
just the one on OAS, and that
Just
was
one,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. G10, approval of behavior specialist support for Center for Therapeutic Education Programs.
Would ask soon to be Dr. Rodriguez, but now Ms. Rodriguez, to bring this one forward.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Good evening, Board President Ed Herron and board members and Cabinet, Dr. Cash. As you are aware that the SALPA and the district work in collaborative in supporting the CTE programs, or the Center for Therapeutic Education programs within our district. Effective January 20th, the BCBA, or the behavior specialist that provides the BCBA services, will be placed on maternity leave. After many attempts, the SALPA was unable to find a replacement, so they asked the district to do so. For this purpose, I'm standing before you so that you will allow us to contract with the non-public agency Allegra Developmental and Behavioral Consultants, so that we can continue to provide these BCBA services to our students that are enrolled in the CTE programs.
Thank you. Discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the behavior specialist support for Center for Therapeutic Education program.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doctor.
Soon to be.
It's so much easier when everybody's a doctor. I mean,
He just goes for that.
it just makes it come off so easy, right, Dr. Jate? G11, approval of additional variable term waivers for single subject mathematics.
Thank you very much, President Herron. I'll ask Ann Peak to come forward. This is something that the board has seen on a regular occasion, and she can present it and answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. As you are aware, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing allows districts to credential teachers using what is called a variable term waiver when we're not able to cover certain shortage areas. Math happens to be one of those. And so I'm before you this evening asking that you approve the variable term waiver as an action item to cover Josh Christensen, who is teaching math for us.
Discussion? Dr.
I
Paz?
move to approve the additional variable term waiver for single subject mathematics for Joshua Christensen.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms.
Great.
Peak.
Thank you. And I would like to mention that we have already started recruiting for the 15-16 school year for math teachers. So
Good.
hopefully I won't be before you as much this next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the action agenda. Let's go to conference H1, first reading of selected board policies and administrative regulations in Series 3000 regarding food sales. And I know we have a lot of members of the Wellness Committee here as observers, I think. I'm not sure if any are going to speak. I don't know if we have any speakers slips, but it's nice to have you in the audience to hear the discussion and take your committee and bring it here and see how we react to these changes.
We'll ask Mr. Torina to make this presentation as the district representative on the Wellness Committee.
So this is a change to the Administrative Regulation 3554 regarding other food sales. It's a mandated regulation to reflect the new law of AB 626 addressing the circumstances under which foods and beverages that do not comply with the state nutrition standards may be sold outside of the district's food service program. Regulation also reflects new federal regulations applicable to the districts participating in the National School Lunch and/or Breakfast Program, which, on effective July 1st, 2014, require all foods sold on campus at any time of the school day to comply with applicable nutrition standards. And as a side note, the board policy is not being reviewed or revised. It's just given here for your reference.
Can we go on to BP 3554? This is for review only, but any questions on it? I have one. The Wellness Committee, on their agenda, they had a report of the vending machines on the various campuses. I know the Wellness Committee doesn't appreciate vending sales. Can you go on to 3554?
We don't, this is all we have.
Oh.
Can you get it on the district website? It wasn't attached to the notes agenda.
Yeah.
It was on mine.
Yeah, it is. It's on ours.
It's not on the public one, unfortunately.
Oh. Well, my comment is, in a couple places in BP 3554, it refers to vending machines, and the superintendent or his designee needs to approve vending machines. And I guess my question is, have we approved the ones that are on the sites now?
Yes.
And have we made any attempt to reduce them?
We have eliminated dozens of vending machines on our sites.
It was interesting when I asked the question of, the ones that are existing, or a lot of the ones that are existing are in staff rooms with soda and snacks.
That would be correct.
And when I asked the question, is that sort of hypocritical? Didn't really get an answer, but it seems to me that it is. Just I'll put that out there. And we were even told of one situation where a staff person brought a child into the vending machine as a reward and provided them something out of the staff machine, vending machine. I think the goal of if the Wellness Committee, they're not going to speak, but if they had their choice, and Mr. Trino can mention this, they probably would like to get rid of most vending machines if they could.
I believe that would be the will of the Wellness Committee.
So keep up the good fight. Okay, so that's just for review. How about other food sales, AR 3554? A lot of changes, a lot of deletions. Can you give us a little background on why the need for all the changes? Is just the whole thing, the whole law changed?
I think it's the whole law change, and also they're trying to streamline what we need to do and not make it so circuitous that we're chasing something that we can't really enforce. I think the language is a little bit cleaner, and it really constructs what we can and can't enforce, and I think that was one of the big issues at the Wellness Committee is sometimes when our representatives went to a principal, the principal wasn't sure. And I think the language in the change really makes it very clear of what they can and cannot have on campus at any given time during the school day.
Ms. Parker?
I would just suggest one piece of clarification on page 2 of 3, where it says, however, there's a new line, which is essentially following current district practice, which is, it says, however, fundraising activities shall not include candy sales, with the exception of school activities that occur outside of the regular school day, such as athletic and performing arts events. Now, it's referring back up to the paragraph that's before the list of numbers, where it says, in a school with any grades K-8, blah, 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 student organization. Essentially, I think we need to add the words in, however, student organization fundraising activities. So if we could just include the words in student organization fundraising activities. Because I've sometimes seen that there is confusion. Booster clubs, parent organizations do not fall under the purview of the board. So we have no say in candy sales by booster clubs, like,
Correct.
you know. And I think that sometimes, you know, people look at things like this and just see fundraising activities and thinks it applies to everything when there's a whole category that is not our bailiwick. And so I think it just might help clarify if they look at that and see that it's student organization fundraising activities.
I also think it's really important to say out loud that the overwhelming majority of fundraising activities will not be done by student organizations. They will be done by parent booster organizations. So it's just need to be upfront and say that there will be candy sales, but they won't be done by student organizations.
Will they be done on campus during school days?
I would prefer that they're not.
I know, but I wondered, when you make that comment, do they go into our schools and put up a stand and sell candy?
No, they still can't have competitive sales during the day.
Right.
So.
Okay.
After the school day, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Are all of our schools National School Lunch and/or Breakfast Program? Do all of our schools participate in those programs?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yes.
In the first green section on top of page 2, it talks about everything we do will comply with the nutritional standards specified in a whole series of nutrition standards. And in the other documents that are being eliminated, one section being eliminated are a list of things that are not accepted and things that are accepted. Do we have a list of things? Does the school know what all of these standards mean? Do we have a list of what 7 CFR 210-11 and 220-12, or do we know what those are?
I have seen the list, and we do have a list. It's in the state of the food service people give those. Nancy Weiss hands those out to the principals. So everyone is aware of what is a legal, food, nutritious food.
And so one of the reasons we're eliminating that whole section that lists specific food and beverages which may be sold, where it goes in quite a bit of detail, is because that's not enough. There's more than just that, so we're trying to include everything. I mean, why are we eliminating specific examples?
Well, I would think that because it changes. I know the list has come and gone over the past years, what's good, what's not good. So I think that's why they are eliminating it, so you have the actual true list of that year.
So when a group comes in and say we want to do this, the principals will know if it's right or wrong?
I would think so.
Okay. In number 1, on the bottom of page 2, the very last line of item 1, it says, on which any number of organizations may conduct the sale of any food items. Any disagreement in adding the words, any approved food items?
No, that makes
It just gives the impression, any food items, okay, great, I can go sell them. It later on says, no, you can't, but it just seems like it might be better to add the word approved. Any other comments? We'll bring this back for a second reading.
Okay.
And approval. And I guess my question is, who has seen all these changes? Have the principals seen them? I sent them out to the Wellness Committee, so I know they've seen them. But has this been passed through any of our principals as a potential change?
It will be once you approve it.
Well, as my common sense tells me, I'd rather see it, have them see it before it's approved, so they can give us comment, rather than have a first reading, come back and approve it, and then have them come to us and say, why'd you do that? I just think it'd be wise to have the principals see this, and if they have any comments on it, they are free to then make them. And that's what happened last time when we tried to ban candy foods totally. The principals said, oh, no, we want specific activities, school activities, to be exempted. But it was good that they found out about it and came to us before we actually made the decision. So I don't know. We'll come back for our second reading, and I would hope that this would be distributed either by the Wellness Committee or by staff to the principals. That's my personal feeling. Okay. Anything else on that? Good. And thank you, Wellness Committee, for listening. And as I have said to you, any of us are more than happy to talk to you anytime if you have questions or comments. Let's see. H2, update on Common Core K-12 math implementation.
Would ask Dr. Drotti to come forward.
Good evening again. What Mr. Hindell and I will try to describe to you is basically our process of implementing the Common Core math that started a couple years ago, but this is just basically an update of where we are right now, and we'll also talk about where we're headed in the future in context to where we are now. The goal of the professional learning for math this year is to establish coherence with the interpretation of grade level content standards, the rigor of the standards, and learning expectations. The design of the professional learning is that our math TOSAs will facilitate collaborative conversations and provide research to district-wide grade level and subject-specific PLC teams with the tasks of unpacking the standards within each unit of study. The product that teachers will leave with are directions for site teams to continue development of lesson plans to teach the units of study, established district-wide common formative assessments, and established clarity and consensus on the rubrics by which they would grade the common form assessments. So what I just described to you is basically our question when our teachers come together are essentially just, what is it that we expect our students to learn at each unit? And with that, how we will have consensus across board to make sure that we are on the same page. And that process will involves really understanding the outcomes that we expect out of our students after each unit of study. And so as such, we develop these common formative assessments together to ensure, and then also we establish the rubrics together so to ensure that all teachers are on the same page. So if you're at La Colina, if you're at 7th grade versus a teacher at La Cumbre, the expectations are the same. And that process is done K-12. So as you can see, if we do that, then there's clarity on what our students are supposed to know by 1st grade, by 2nd grade, third grade, and so on. We feel that that is all we can handle at this point. I think if we're going to be efficient with that, really identifying what it is that we expect our students to learn, and then next year we will transition to how, by using, by really unpacking some of the data and revisiting some of the outcomes and triangulating the data between the common form of assessments that we have with a smarter balance, and just really creating a cycle of inquiry with all the teams that are on these meetings. What you see before you here, Mr. Rickman, if you can continue to scroll up. What you see before you there are all the dates that math teachers are being pulled out. As you can see, the math TOSAs are very, very busy. And you'll also see the grade levels. So when you see a kindergarten, we're talking about all kindergartens teachers district-wide. I'm going to reiterate that. All kindergarten teachers district-wide. That's a powerful statement there, especially when they leave there, they're having a clear understanding of what is expected of the students. And as you can see, we have different grade levels, and every grade level is covered here all the way up to 9th grade integrated math. Also to right over there, you'll see that we will, in February 1st, we will start the integration of Math 2 and Math 3 and compaction math in the high school. Mr. Emilio Hendo, you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think what you're saying up here is there's a tremendous amount of work going on. Our teachers and the capacity of our district to deliver all this training has really been stretched. And our folks have done just an absolutely outstanding job in terms of trying to soak up as much information and knowledge as they possibly can over these last couple of years, and especially these last few months. So we're hoping that during the course of the rest of the year, what we'll see is some common formative assessments and what Dr. Drotti just mentioned in regards to a cycle of inquiry using different data points that they will be provided through the Smarter Balance and through common formative assessments, and what they're seeing in class will help them get better as we go further down the road. But we've got a long way to go, and we have to be patient with our teachers because they're doing so much right now, and we're hoping that we can continue to support them as we get information from them to try and understand their needs.
Before you believe in your packets or in your information you have, we have basically the description of all the different professional learning that's taking place. We also have a description of, and we can scroll up to the next document here. This is basically the process by which we are engaged in developing those common form assessments. And you'll see that we expect to have at least 3 common assessments in each grade level. So there's essentially about 6 or 7 units that need to be covered, and we're talking about 2 units after every 2 to 2.5 units that there will be common assessments as a dipstick of where district-wide where our students are and what needs to be done to address the needs of the students. So another document that we also have is keep scrolling up. That's it. Okay. I thought we had another document that had. The third document that you will see is the breakdown on how many sections at the secondary, how many sections of classes we have in compaction to junior high, and support classes by site, and also just the general classes. So these numbers are for you to look at, and with that, we'll leave it up to questions, and we'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions? Ms. Parker?
Just starting, and first of all, I got to, really thank our math TOSAs and math teachers for the incredible work that they're doing. And it's across the district because obviously it's happening in elementary as well. And I do worry because I know that there's so much work going on in terms of curriculum development. It's a huge burden on all teachers, and I really recognize that. I wish that there was some package that's available right now, but I just read again and again that it's not out there. And so that's a frustration with the transition to the Common Core, particularly for math. I'm curious on these sections, there's a lot of disparity and some of it is obviously related to size, but a lot of it isn't. And I'm wondering why it is that Goleta Valley is not running support classes. And I'm wondering why with the support classes, did each junior high kind of come up with its own criteria? Because given the numbers, I would expect the greatest number of support classes to be at our largest junior highs, and instead it's the opposite. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, great question. Yes, there was a criteria given to all the junior high teachers and the high school as to who would go into support class. We wanted to be very clear that we realize that putting students in support class means that they are not taking some form of elective, but we wanted to invest early into this, into getting the students what they need, so that way by the time they get to high school that they would be in the grade level courses. So based on the data that we collected in terms of CSTs, every student took the placement test that we had for enrichment, and then we also looked at student grades and recommendations. A lot of what discrepancies you see here are what you would have probably seen under the CST model, but those students would have been in some kind of pre-algebra or pre-algebra A or B course. Instead, what we said is we took those students and put them into a general Common Core class, and we basically said that they will be exposed to the same curriculum that everybody else is exposed to, but they will get the support that they needed. So certain schools are going to have more, because in the past they would have had more of those pre-algebra A, B courses or such. So based on what I paid very close attention to that, because my question was, and the way I associated with what they would have had in the past versus now is pretty equivalent, with probably one section of difference. It could have gone either way.
Can you speak to Goleta Valley in particular?
Yes, I can. Based on the data they have, the students that they have, they felt that they only needed that one section to give the students the support they need. So they felt that most of the students can succeed without the extra support, based on the data that they have.
They have 0 sections in there.
Right. They have no support sections.
Yes. Yes. So.
Do you know if they've grouped their Math 7 in certain ways that their kids? I would have to check with the principal on that, but I believe that they understand that they receive funding. They do receive funding for support classes. I would have to check this again. Perhaps there's a mistake, but I know they have at least 1 or 2 sections of support. So my apologies for not giving you the accurate information. I know they have support classes there. Okay. And
it's not as many as the others, but they do have support classes.
They do have something, okay. And then on the Math 7-8 compaction, obviously that was a big parent concern at the beginning of the school year.
Absolutely.
And is that going okay? Is there a sense that that's going okay? How many kids are actually enrolled in these sections?
Yeah, so when you see there, you'll see that La Colina has most sections. And then La Cumbre has a section, and Goleta Valley has a section. We attempted to establish a section at Santa Barbara Junior High, and we didn't have any parents or students that are interested in taking compaction there, although we do have a teacher available to teach the course there.
So there's an available class, but there's nobody in that one?
Yes.
Okay.
In terms of how it's going with the curriculum, the teachers meet, they get the support of the TOSAs, and they have a learning curve. So what they do is we give them all the support they need in terms of pull-outs to collaborate, and as you said, they have to learn the 7th grade math, 8th grade math, and then 9th grade math, and get that done in the next 2 years here.
Piece of cake.
Okay, Ms. Addison?
Two questions. I just heard you say 2 years. I have a concern when I look at the dates for the grade levels back at the beginning, where you have kindergarten, first grade, that each of those is having a substitute there for, is that their entire day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know from my own children that is always a challenge for them, when you're in a math class and you have a sub for the day and
Yes.
things sort of get thrown off. So is this going to occur for 2 years and then, or are we ongoing this level of training?
This amount was necessary to get the teachers to understand the outcome of what they're teaching. I think this is the most critical component. Next year we'll transition to how we can improve our instruction, and the focus will be on more or less instructional strategies.
Will it be this intense?
Sorry, no, it won't be this intense because the need won't be there to have this many meetings.
And this is also going on in language arts, is it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So at the secondary level, we have the benefit of having teachers of different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So as the English language arts teachers are being pulled out, it's a different person than the math teacher. And elementary, and Mr. Hindell will speak more to that and the adjustments they have to make, but you're talking about the same teacher. And they not only have to teach math, learn how to do math, Common Core math, they have to learn the new standards for
Right.
English language arts, science, social science. So I believe they are working very closely with SBTA to ensure that we're not overtasking the teachers, and we're in constant communication with them. The principal is in constant communication with the teachers to make sure that it's not too much. I believe we did make some adjustments this year when the issue arose that the teachers were feeling overtaxed, and Mr. Hindell could speak more to that, but we made some adjustments to address that.
So as Dr. Drotti just mentioned, we did originally start off with a plan to have our elementary teachers work in the same type of intensive schedule with language arts as well, but after a while we just realized it wasn't doable, and they expressed some concern. In working with SBTA, we figured out that we should really focus on one content area this year in terms of intensity, and offer some after-school sessions, and also allow for our district-wide PLCs to work with teachers in the area of language arts. So what we've done essentially is put our language arts kind of on the back burner while we work in math real intensely during this year. Because it's a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
like Dr. Drotti said, I mean, you're talking language arts, you're talking math, you're talking science that were being pulled out for training as well. And now we just had the English language arts ELD framework just released that we're also going to have to provide training for. So there's just so much falling on our elementary teachers. We had to scale back. We absolutely had to. So the hopes are that there's so much knowledge already in terms of language arts and reading and writing that it can hopefully carry us through this year until we hit next year. And I'm certain we're going to, again, triangulate the information we get back from our assessments, from our SRI data, from our accelerated reader assessments, from our Smarter Balance assessments, to reevaluate what we're doing in language arts and put together a plan.
Good.
One thing I heard in that discussion by teachers, which I thought was a positive, and Ms. Parker may have heard the same, is that, yes, they felt there was just a lot going on, but overriding it was the fact that they didn't want to leave their kids. Having their kids subjected to some substitutes on a regular basis, when the substitutes didn't know the game plan, didn't know the lesson plans, that they felt it was a disservice to their kids. So I appreciated that coming from the teachers, that I thought that was very valuable to know.
The challenge for us as a district really is to try and balance the capacity of our district to A, provide the training necessary with the subs, but also the problem contractually of we can't mandate that our teachers come during the summer to get this same type of training. So we have to find some time during the contractual year to provide this training. Otherwise, we're just leaving it up to whomever wants to participate. And that's, that leads to a lack of coherence. And we don't want that. So we have to balance it, and it is a challenge. It's a challenge for us as a district, and I know it's a challenge for the teachers to be out that much, but it is going to be a balance for the next couple of years of making sure that we're not pulling teachers out so much that they're not able to be with their students, but we have to make sure we provide students with teachers that are properly informed to be able to provide the instruction that we deem is appropriate.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disagreement on that. I only made the comment that I thought it was nice if the teachers in that discussion weren't thinking about themselves.
Right.
They were thinking about their kids.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most important things our teachers can do is worry about their kids. Any other comments or discussion? Thank you very much. It's a tremendous effort, that's for sure.
I want to remind the board that in both the math and English language arts, our kids are going to be assessed on as if they had been instructed in the Common Core for many, many years with many, many experienced and trained teachers this spring, along with every other district in California. And if those assessment results are to be used as some sort of way to measure student, school, district progress, which I think they really only represent a small picture of that ultimately. But if they are, and they will be used by the external community, that I hope board members will remember that that the student's success on those assessments is going to depend upon a highly qualified teacher in their classroom.
That's for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
H3, first reading of selected board policies and administrative regulations in Series 1000, Community Relations. 1312-.3, BP and AR 1312.4, and some exhibits.
Well, there's the reason why Mr. Torina is sitting on the dais today. So, Mr. Torina.
So we have before you two areas of complaint procedures, one specific to the Williams uniform complaint regarding instructional materials, the primary regarding just complaint procedures in general. The change that they're asking for in regards to uniform complaint procedures actually wants to expand the ability for that complaint procedure to include any type of failure to comply with the LCAP implementation, and also as a administrative regulation, also include the idea to be able to complain specific to us the discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and bullying as required by California Department of Education Federal Program Monitoring Progress. So the first part, which I'd like to first consider, is BB and AR 1312.3, and we'll look at that first, then we'll go to the Uniform Complaint for the Williams Act.
Can you find them? These two didn't get included into Novus for some reason. Did you get them in your?
Yes.
Can you find the actual policies?
Just look on the website.
Well, did they get sent to?
They should have been.
There they are.
There.
I might ask the board if they have any questions on any of them before we go through every single one. It's Ms. Parker?
I actually thought that all of them are really sort of straightforward and don't have, I only have one itty-bitty suggestion for a change on this one in paragraph 1 on the third sentence, where it says, to resolve complaints which cannot be resolved through such informal process, that it just be changed to resolve through such an informal process, referring to this, informal resolution of complaints whenever possible. So sticking in an "and" there, and that was
Such an informal
yeah.
process.
Yeah, so for me, for both this uniform complaint and for the Williams process, that was it for me.
Ms. Adams?
No change.
Dr. Paz? No. I have one tiny change also. On the very last page of (1312.3). Well, I'm sorry, no, on the 1312-4, I guess actually, on the actual complaint procedures, there's a document, and at the very end, please file this complaint at the following location, and it says Mitch Torina, and it says principal or title of designee. Do we normally put people's name in the AR, or
the position itself?
You're going to be here forever, but we'd have to come back and change if you left. I mean,
I can change it to the title of
it just says
Assistant Superintendent of Student
It says you can have a
Services.
title. I
Right.
just wonder if that might be more appropriate. I don't want
I
that to be a
think so.
sign of anything, but
Thank you, Mr. Herron.
that's, so,
Great. With those changes, can we bring them back on consent?
yes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Lots of changes on your desk. Do you do anything else besides policy?
No.
No, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, H4, first reading of CSB changes per policy 4119-41, employees with infectious diseases.
Well, this would normally be Dr. Christensen, but she hasn't, in fact, no, I'm kidding. She's actually away at an HR conference, so Mr. Tangway's here to make this presentation.
Okay, hello again. So typically, as new and/or revised regulations come out, either federal, state, or the California Ed Code, and become law, and as these affect board policy, the California School Boards Association provides us with updated samples of new or replacement policies, which is what you have before you with employees with infectious diseases, and as you can see, there are a number of changes.
Any questions on any of the changes? I don't see any questions. So if, do you want to take more time and tell us about things, or?
I'm
He does not.
I'm very happy to be done.
He's done.
We'll bring it back on the consent calendar.
Very
next
good.
week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tangway.
H5, first reading, Regulation 6153, school-sponsored trips.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This matter is before you based upon a number of conversations with some board members and with principals about our district's practice in relationship to school-sponsored trips. One of the issues you'll note, the change are noted. They're not significant changes except for one, and that is we have enlarged the staff that would be allowed to supervise students on a school-sponsored trip to include a certified coach, because we have lots of our students in our high schools taking school-sponsored trips to away athletic events, and they are not with a certificated teacher because we have a walk-on coach. And that's been the practice in every high school in the nation for decades. The other change that I think is significant is that in a conversation with the principals, they felt it would be appropriate to place some guidance in relationship to the adult-to-student ratio. And they felt very strongly that those ratios should be reflected of the age of the students in which they're supervising. And so that is also reflected in the language. Absent that, there are no other changes.
Ms. Parker?
I guess I have a question because I don't think as a board that we've considered athletics as being a school-sponsored trip, even though I think it makes sense to think of it that way. And so is the current practice for any athletic event that includes travel, has it already been that the coach obtains parent guardian permission for,
Yes.
is it done on a trip-by-trip basis or for a season basis?
A combination of both.
Okay. All right. Other than that, I think it looks fine. Just a question.
Ms. Adelson?
I have a question on this line where it says, whenever a trip involves water activities, the parent/guardian shall provide specific permission for his or her child to participate in the water activities. And this came up, was asked of me, does that include, say, staying at a hotel and going in their swimming pool?
No.
And being in their spa? No.
No.
Okay, so this would be something, playing a sport in water, or would it be like going to a water park, or?
Yeah, going to a water park or riding on a boat to go to
Whale
Catalina
watching.
Island.
Okay, so this is to say that that should be a specific line in the permission slip?
Well, there is a line in the permission slip that identifies whether there is water.
Okay, but a pool would not qualify?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Come back as a consent item.
Great, thank you very much.
H6, first reading, discussion, approval of board policy, administration regulation, and Exhibit 6174, education for English language learners.
I'd like to ask Dr. Ramirez to come forward and present. You've had an initial conversation about the proposed changes we would have in reclassification, and we've put those before you now in the board policy and administrative regulation. Dr. Ramirez.
Hi, good evening, Board President. Thank you for the opportunity to share this with you. As Dr. Cash indicated, we did have a prior discussion in November pertaining to our interim reclassification criteria and the steps that we would have to take in order to begin to assess for basic skills primarily, but within that conversation there was a broader discussion had about updating our policy to ensure that it's reflective of the data that we've seen historically and also of some of the shifts that have occurred. So beginning with the board policy 6174, what you see before you are changes. Much of this are changes to language brought forward since the last revision, which was in 2009. And one important, although it may appear to be semantics, but it's actually very important, is the way in which English learners are identified. So traditionally, the term English language learners and English learners has been used interchangeably. To an extent, it still can be, but this language would really refer to our students as English learners or English learner students. So I just wanted to draw attention to that small but important change or shift in the way that we classify our students. Beyond that, in the board policy, really, it's just language really to update much of the changes that have occurred and much of the details that we had discussed during our previous conversation and my previous presentation can be found in the administrative regulation 6174. In addition to that, we also have a few exhibits. There are three ed codes, 311. 311 Part A, Part B, and Part C. Those were condensed into one waiver form, and the language is very consistent, so it's just really streamlined. But you see the documentation and the exhibits that were available previously, or available as of now, that we're looking to streamline and make more comprehensive. So with that, I don't know if you have any questions that you'd like to ask or anything that I can clarify.
Ms. Parker?
I noticed in one section, and obviously we're seeing the parental exception waiver in English, there's one section where it used to say that it would be available in English and Spanish specifically, and that's being deleted. And I'm wondering if that's because there's an expectation that it will be provided in the parent's home language, whatever that may be, or if we need to spell that out in the policy.
We can certainly spell that out in the policy, but it's our practice to ensure that our documents, particularly this parental exception waiver, is available in Spanish.
I'm just looking at that. I think it's in the AR. Is that correct? Where it gets eliminated? This is what happens when I don't... Well, if I can't even find it, then it probably is fine, but I just want to make sure that it is our practice, that it's not necessarily, we have a number of families where Spanish is not the home language, and that they would need this in a different language, Arabic or whatever, and I just want to be sure that that is our practice.
Other than English?
No. It's specifically about the parental waiver form.
Well, you're looking for that. My question would be, the title of this AR is Education for English Language Learners. Are you going to change all the titles and the bottom of each page to make it just English learners?
Yes, we can make that change.
Any luck?
No.
I'm
Well-
looking for it too. I'm sorry, I can't find it.
Well, you can find it, we can find it. Just when it comes back to us, if you find that and you think it needs to be in both languages or some other language.
Right. If you wanted amended to reflect that change, we can absolutely do that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. We'll go forward, and if you, once anybody finds it, you can look at it and think if it deems appropriate, bring it back to us at the next meeting on the consent calendar with that change if appropriate.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
H7, presentation of Proposition 39 Energy Conservation and Energy Efficiency Services Report and Expenditure Plan Options. I want to thank you gentlemen for you've been here since before 6:30, so thank you very much. For a while, we thought you were the auditors, and then we saw the auditor come in.
And we saw Royce back there. We didn't know if he was going to make it. Good to see Royce here. All right, Mr. Het-Yunk.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, members of the board. Our energy audit is complete. I have an electronic file. If anybody wishes that full copy of that, I could be more than happy to send it to you. Tonight is a presentation on the results and summary of that audit, what we would want to, what we can qualify for as far as using our Prop 39 funds, the types of projects, summary on that, a couple options for you to consider, and I'll let Will Travers from Noresco start it off. Oop, not Will.
Good evening. Actually, my name is Derek James. I'm with Noresco also. My colleague Will Travers here is with me, and we're going to review the results of the energy expenditure plan, which is required to obtain the Prop 39 funds, and discuss the next steps to obtain those funds and begin to implement the projects. So here are the results of the energy expenditure plan, shown by school, sorted by the savings to investment ratio from the highest to the lowest. The savings to investment ratio is a eligibility metric used by the Energy Commission to qualify the projects under Prop 39. And the lowest requirement is 1.05, which you'll see at the bottom of the list there are some of the schools that are just meeting that requirement. Moving along here, we'll show you the actual projects.
Excuse me, Dr. Paz has a question.
Sure. Can we go back to that last slide? Just so that we understand, the energy savings that is listed on that second column, the estimated costs, the estimated rebates, so what time frame are we looking at for that?
Sure. So the energy savings are on an annual basis, and the estimated costs are the overall implementation costs of each respective project bundle.
Okay. And the
rebates are the utility rebates associated with those projects that are eligible under the respective rebate programs.
Okay.
So.
And the estimated costs come from where?
They're based on our engineering costs.
Where does the money
estimates.
come from?
I'm
Where
sorry.
does the money come from?
So the costs will be coming from the planning fund allocations, which I'll talk about here in a moment.
Great, thank you.
So this describes the types of projects for each of the schools. And as you'll see here, that all the projects identified in the plan are lighting projects. And there's a reason for that. And the main reason is that the majority of the energy expenditure and usage and costs at each of the schools comes from lighting. Approximately 70% of energy costs at each respective school is due to the lighting costs. So we felt that was the greatest opportunity for usage and allocation of those funds to ensure and achieve the energy savings would be through lighting upgrades and lighting retrofits, which is broken out by both interior lighting retrofits and upgrades, as well as exterior lighting projects. And on the interior lighting projects, we're also including lighting controls, which includes wireless technologies to help control the lights based on occupancy, as well as give control to each of the fixtures, allowing some dimming capabilities associated with the lighting controls. And then at Goleta Valley and La Colina, we're looking at also upgrading the theater lighting system, excluding the stage lighting. So here are the funding allocations over the 5-year period. Both years, the current plan includes year 1 and 2, and those funds have been allocated, and collectively they are $1.2 million for years 1 and 2. The subsequent 3 years are estimated allocations, and those actual allocations will be based on actual tax revenues and formulas to determine what those actual numbers will be in those subsequent years. So looking at years 1 and 2, which is the plan that needs to be submitted in the current year to obtain the funding, like I said, is about $1.2 million, and the breakout of those costs that we're proposing here is over on the far right-hand column, which is made up of both the cost to develop the plan, some legal costs associated with contracting for the projects, consulting services, and then the actual construction costs. And that makes up the $1.2 million for the first 2 years. So because the total implementation or estimated costs for all the schools exceeds the yearly allocations, what we need to do is identify and package a bundle of projects to account for the first 2 years of funding allocation. So what we're proposing are 2 different options for your consideration. The first option is made up of those schools and those projects with the highest savings to investment ratios initially. And the second option is to take the 4 highest savings to investment ratio for those schools and add in the La Colina Junior High School because it's the highest single energy savings potential for one individual school, as well as it includes the theater lighting project. So those are the 2 options that we've identified in making up the first 2 years allocation And as you'll see, the estimated cost is just the construction cost, and then those other costs that I identified earlier will make up the total $1.2 million for the first 2 years. And then sorry, can you go back real quick? The total estimated annual energy savings for those two options are also shown there. The combined savings to investment ratios between the two options, the first option is about 1.5 savings to investment ratio, and the second option is 1.2, a little bit lower. So as far as the next steps to obtain the funding, we're proposing to continue to engage NORESCO through the implementation phase of the projects, and we feel that there's some benefit to that. One of the main benefits is to ensure the integrity of what was identified in the plan is ultimately achieved at the end of the day once the projects are implemented. And the way that we would help to achieve that is to finalize the design for the lighting projects, as well as develop the technical specifications around that design when it's going out to bid for the respective contractor, review the bid, provide some contractor oversight, as well as through implementation. At the end of implementation is to provide some commissioning to ensure the performance of the systems meet the design intent and the energy savings will actually be achieved that were initially identified. And what we would also do is provide assurance that the projects will meet the Title 24 compliance as well, which is the energy code compliance, and then also provide ongoing administrative support with the Proposition 39 compliance, which includes a lot of reporting to track performance of the actual projects. And what we would do there is to develop a web-based energy dashboard, which will help the district to track the performance on a school-by-school basis to ensure that the projects are actually achieving the energy savings that were projected, and then provide the required reporting to the Energy Commission. And then for the subsequent 3 years, we would also help to maximize the available funding and identify the bundle of projects to ensure that the available funding is actually achieved and obtained through the Proposition 39 guidelines. So here are the consulting service fees that would be associated with those services. In the first 2 years, we're looking at just under $150,000, and then the subsequent 3 years would be about $50,000 each year thereafter, for a total of $294,000. So the next steps in a timeline basis are to include the review and approval of the expenditure plan, which are basically for the board to consider those two options which I presented, and then also consider approving the consulting services agreement, which was included in our energy expenditure plan package that Mr. Hit-Yonk has in front of him. And then thereafter is to submit the energy expenditure plan to the California Energy Commission for its review and approval. And during that time, the commission will come back with certain comments that will need to be addressed, mostly technical related comments that we would address and respond accordingly. And then once it's approved by the commission, it goes on to the Department of Education to process the funds. And then once those funds are processed, then we can begin the bidding process to bring on a contractor to implement the projects. So at this time, I'll leave it open for questions.
Any other comments, Mr. Hit-Yonk?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the options 1 and 2. I mean, we could have easily, one more back, I think, Todd. Yeah. You know, we looked at just bringing forward an option and say, you know, this is the greatest savings that we would have. And then we also looked at the schools and their operate and the fact that in the early planning process for this, La Colina asked us to take a real hard, close look at their theater lighting. They did a lot of research and provided a lot of information, and it ended up being a great push by David Ortiz for us to look at something and say, you know, there's really an opportunity here. So one is kind of maximize the initial savings to the general fund, and the other kind of looks at that in a combination with affecting a program that's out there that if you've been in that theater, that lighting is really poor at both there and Goleta Valley Junior High. And so that's why kind of how we came up with our option 1 and option 2. And I give you that information to start the discussion.
Ms. Idelson.
I have a question on the, I guess it's second page of 9. Yes. The rebate, is that, it doesn't look like it's a percentage. What, is that based on, you know, what you're replacing, or how does that work?
So the utility rebate programs are more or less prescriptive in the type of lighting upgrade. So a certain fixture type will be eligible for a certain dollar amount available for the rebate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's using those prescriptive amounts and applying that accordingly.
Okay. And then the other thing, it looks like some of these sort of fit into categories, like Dos Pueblos and San Marcos High Schools are very close, extremely close energy savings, around 17,000, and the costs are, but yet Santa Barbara High is way like much less. Is that for any reason, or just how you're, what's being, you know, what you're seeing when you look at this?
Yeah, it's looking at what the opportunities based on the current lighting systems that are in each respective school, and what we saw as the best opportunity from an upgrade standpoint to ensure that both from a cost and savings standpoint that those are achievable. On the Santa Barbara, for example, we identified those fixtures that were higher kind of lighting power density, that had more lamps per fixture kind of thing, which would maximize the savings for those schools.
And on anything that's, say, projected to be replaced, or if it's a portable that maybe won't be there in 5 years, are you taking all that into account?
That was also considered, definitely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Parker?
We kind of gave NORESCO some direction to not look at the classroom lighting in portable classrooms and to concentrate on our permanent buildings.
I've got 2 question areas. One is just in terms of how the plan was put together, because in a lot of our schools, the lighting, we may have lighting that is using a lot of power, but it's still poor. The classrooms are poorly lit, the hallways are poorly lit. So was there any thought in developing this plan? Was it strictly about like sort of a fixture for, you know, existing fixture, replace the type of lighting that goes in, or was there any thought to like we could actually improve the lighting in certain situations? Is that factored in?
That is factored in, and some of that, the design includes adding new fixtures and additional fixtures to ensure that the required light levels are achieved in each classroom, for example, to meet the energy code that stipulates what those lighting levels are required to be within each classroom. So some added additional fixtures, but the types of fixtures and the technology that we're recommending produces more light per fixture than the current fixture technologies.
Great. And then my other question, maybe it's for Mr. Hetjonk, is that, you know, estimated costs. So to be clear, this money to pay for it would not be coming from bond funds. It would be coming from general fund dedicated towards
This would come
facilities.
from Proposition 39 money.
Just, so the estimated cost comes just from Proposition 39 money?
Everything that we're presenting is assuming only using Proposition 39 money with the savings going to the general fund. If the board wished to expand something in the future, we could do that, but right now, this is only using our Prop 39 allocation from the state.
I guess that is one of my questions, because if I look at it and there's the trade-off, I mean, in terms of the rebates, there's still an energy savings that could be beneficial to our funds if we just think of this in a larger sense and do more of the project. So it's something that I think we should certainly be thinking about.
Dr. Paz?
For the exterior lighting, I know if you walk across our campuses, sometimes when we have meetings, for whatever reason we're on a campus, was there consideration for some of in the past, one of the things that we have done is look at or discussed security at night for some of our campuses, especially some of the bigger campuses like the high schools that have a lot of issues for particular parts of the campus. Was that part of the discussion? Was that looked at? Is that part of the consideration we're looking at?
Yes, similar to kind of the classroom is the lighting upgrades that would occur on the exterior would include meeting the code requirements and meeting safety light levels. So that was a consideration.
When the schools were walked, site administration was involved, and they did point out areas that were of concern, and so those areas were also looked at. I can't tell you for sure what was included, but I do know they pointed out concerned areas for us to review.
Dr. Paz?
And so I have another follow-up question that's maybe perhaps a little bit beyond this discussion, which is, if we're looking at this as a cost savings and then looking at, what we look at our current costs and our future costs going down, hopefully, obviously, what are we looking at, what would be looking at in terms of the future and reinvesting that? Have we had a discussion about that? And then beyond that, really looking at, using our sustainability committee to looking at other opportunities to save in terms of energy costs as well. Because I can imagine sometimes I've had the opportunity to drive by some of our campuses, and you can see the lights on still, and they're not lights, they're computer lights. Someone left their computer on. It's still running. And so maybe that is another consideration to kind of look at in terms of the future.
And I can add to that too on the subsequent planning years. Those are the types of things that we consider as future projects, including kind of the power management systems for the computer systems.
Great.
Mr. Tay, who currently pays the utility bills? Who is charged for them? What funds do they come from?
Comes out of the general fund.
It doesn't come site allocations?
No, it does
Okay.
not. We know which sites cost how much, but we don't charge them.
Okay, so, because my question would be, if they were paying for them, they would probably see the reduction, but they're not
It's a
paying for it.
fabulous idea.
Yeah.
You go ahead and tell them that.
Out of what revenue would they pay for them?
Okay, good question. I didn't know the answer. Off topic a little bit, have you given a similar report to the charter schools? Or are you in the process of giving the report to them?
We are in the process. We just met with Adelante today, and we're meeting with the two others tomorrow.
Okay, and are their reports similar to this?
Yes.
Looking fairly good savings?
Yes.
Okay. Point blank question. When this came before us originally, we changed the proposal and said we want 2 stages. 1, the report, and 2, then talk about who does the work. Mr. Hayank, have you looked at that and given any thought to outside bids for the work? I mean, I don't know what's normal in the field. I don't know if there's companies that just do the report and companies just do the work.
Well, NORESCO wouldn't actually do the work. They would prepare, if their proposal was acceptable to Dr. Cash and the board, they would prepare a contract which would task them with design and implementation, but the district, my department would do, just like we do with every construction contract, we would either put it out to bid, or we would come to you with a recommendation for a lease back, and we would administer that contract, and we would follow through with all those items. The one thing that Noresco would do during that time is assist whatever inspection that we did on their own to make sure that things were done, per their specifications also, besides our district inspector, whether it be a DSA inspector or whoever.
But are there companies that take a plan and another company implement the plan? Or is it typically the one company does it all?
Typically, one company would do both for continuity. If you, I reviewed that their proposal for their costs, and I think they're in line with what other companies would charge. They're not out of line.
Okay, and the original contract, if I recall correctly, was for 15 years. What are we looking at now?
5 years, I think, is what they've outlined.
I think the other, it would just be implementing these 5 years of allocations for the Prop 39 funds, of which we would get our year 1 and 2 application at the same time. So we're basically talking four designs and 4 construction costs for the next 4 years, using 5 years of money.
But then they also, the work you do in the 5th year, they would want to monitor that for how long?
As long as necessary to satisfy the state.
I mean, so that would be an additional cost.
No, that would not be any additional funds.
No, but
in other words, their contract would call for them to implement and do the reports for the state based on that contract. And if the state said, for the next so much amount of time, you need to furnish us this information, they would be tasked with doing that under their contract.
That's what I was wondering. Does their contract go beyond 2018? I mean, the original contract we had was like for 15 years because there was a lot of monitoring over a period of time. Is that in the current proposal?
I don't believe it is. It would not be, no.
Okay. Ms. Parker?
And maybe this is more of a...
Well, we don't have a current proposal yet, but it would not be in a proposal.
And maybe this is a Mr. Jete question. I mean, when I look at the savings, and obviously, any energy efficient project where we did it this route or that route, it's a savings to the district. I'm assuming when we talk about annual savings that it would essentially be an ongoing annual savings, that's the way you would put it into our financial data. But then I look at the cost for the consulting services, and the cost for the consulting services would eat up any savings that we made on the energy. And so that's sort of if I look at it in sort of like a trade-off in that way, I don't know that necessarily makes sense.
But the consulting services are paid out of the Prop 39 money. So we're going to have to pay somebody to do it, and it'll come out of Prop 39. So we can't keep the Prop 39 money to supplement our general fund. It can only be used for this program.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind,
it seems like a boondoggle for the state, frankly. If this is, what's going on all over the state, then anything would be eaten up for the state in terms of cost savings. So
well, I think you can read it in the governor's, because the governor's proposed expanding the program in his current budget proposal, and the rationale for it is clearly to get schools more energy efficient, is the bottom line.
Yeah, and it was also part of the Job Recovery Stimulus Act, so it's twofold. It's to save energy and to create jobs.
Right.
And
Dr. Potts?
maybe one of the things that we would, probably help as a board is to understand sort of, we're looking at 5 years of savings, even with the numbers that you have, that you put up in the first place. I mean, beyond that, even LED lighting is going to last, if you keep it up, a lot longer than 5 years. So the savings is beyond just the 5 years. I'm correct, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the savings, or the savings to investment ratio, is the net present value of those savings relative to the initial cost of the project.
Okay, great, thank you.
Can you turn your attention to page 4, the two options? I'm sure Mr. Young would like some thought on what the board thinks about option 1 or option 2.
My thought would be to go with option 1 because we're impacting more schools. And option 2, although I think there's definitely a need at La Colina for that lighting. I've been there in that theater and it's dim. It's hard to see. Option 1 gives us a lot more schools and we're impacting a lot more schools right off the bat.
I would agree with
Ms. Adelson?
Dr. Paul. Sorry. I would agree.
Ms. Parker?
Yeah.
You know, I think I see what Ms. Parker's talking about is that under option 1, there's 82,000 savings per year. So for the first 2 years, that's 160,000 in savings. But the cost is 147,000. But what Dr. Cash is saying, that the savings come to us, the cost isn't us, it's
The state.
It's the state. So, but the bottom line is, we still would save $160,000, and that is ongoing, hopefully long after 5 years or thereabouts. But
And I kind of look at this, at least as a board member, that one of the things that I've always, even when I was running for school board, is look at savings. I think even when you start that mindset of thinking about savings, it spurs people to think about other things. How am I, am I leaving my computer on? You know, the lights are going to turn off. Am I leaving my computer on? Turn it off, you know, that sort of thing. So I think that the savings would probably even go beyond that in my view. And if we look at future projects, that would be something for us to really consider, is looking at other possible alternatives or other options to save additional in additional places, because I think that's something we definitely need to look at. And these, I think for me as a board member, I'm looking at this as a future investment, not just in the short term that yes, we're paying for consulting fees. Yes, but at the end of the day, we are going to be saving some money future forward.
how do you determine going forward after year 1 what the actual energy savings are at a school based upon this project versus all of a sudden a principal says to staff, turn off your computers, so there's a savings there? How do you differentiate savings to this program versus savings that good schools implement totally unrelated to this?
I don't know that you can truly differentiate it. Hopefully, the principals have given that direction many times in the past and keep giving it. We've had many discussions on that.
I can tell you that if the savings in Santa Barbara High School comes out to be $10,000, these two gentlemen will claim they did it.
But, well, you're going to be able to just track basic utility bills. At the end of the day, we anticipate the utility bills would be reduced without us knowingly changing the energy use at that school. If we did some other things at that school that would change the energy use, then we should be able to hopefully estimate, what value that would have towards the bill based on the kilowatt hours. One thing I would also say is that based on what discussions that I've had with NORESCO, I've directed them to replace the complete fixture, not do a rehab of existing fixtures in case there are any old fixtures that at one time contain ballast that contain PCBs. We'd rather that whole fixture just go bye-bye and never take a chance on any residue being there in the future. We'll have a brand new fixture, and if there was ever a renovation in a classroom, you could always take that lighting and reinstall it with the renovation if there was a ceiling renovation or something like that. Most of the classroom lighting is in the drop-in ceilings.
Ms. Parker?
Just circling back again on the consulting fees, or the possibility, obviously we don't have an actual contract ahead of us at this point, but is there somewhere, when we talk about that $294,000, is there somewhere in our documentation, and I'm afraid to try to fool around because I keep getting popped out of Nova's agenda, where it lists that as a percentage of the total Prop 39 funds that the district is getting? Do we have that, or, and I'm looking at Mr. Haddock.
It's not, I don't think it's in the current documentation, but I can tell you it's approximately 10%.
Okay.
On an annual basis.
If you look at slide 3, 2.8, 2.8 million.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
I would also go along with option 1, just for the record, mainly based upon my belief that we do priority. And this is from 1.99 down to 1.27. Doesn't make any sense to go down to 1.05 and eliminate the 1.43, 1.39, 1.33. So I like the idea of going with the priorities, giving the biggest bang for the buck.
And I want to remind the board that this is projects for years 1 and 2. So the other schools would be hit in years 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
Exactly.
So there would be, according to this analysis, an accumulated savings of about $180,000 when all the projects were completed.
Now, if we had an extra 1.3 million to do everything, can you get reimbursed in years 3, 4, and 5 for the work you do now? Or do you have to do it once you're approved for it?
I don't know that you can go back and get reimbursed because you have to have that plan as a submittal. I'll refer back to Noresco, but I don't know that you can do that.
Actually, you can get reimbursed. We're working with other districts that are doing everything up front and then using their own money and then coming back in later years and reimbursing themselves with future Prop 39 allocations. So
But you're gambling that the money will be there, right?
True. So those amounts could differ based on tax revenues, so there's a bit of a gamble there, but I think we're pretty certain there will be years 3 through 5, just not sure what the exact amounts will be.
Because the 3 schools we're not doing amount to about 1.3, so it's something to think of, along with Mrs. Parker, it's something to think about. Any further questions or comments? Thank you for the time and waiting and being here, and you saw us in action, so you know what you're faced with.
So we would like to bring this back with their proposal at the next board meeting. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, will do.
Thank you.
As long as the understanding is we don't have to approve it. Thank you very much. H8, presentation of Santa Barbara Unified School District's independent audit report for the period ending June 30th. And we have our auditor here, and I'd like to, I think it's Royce, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure to be here. As you know, we usually go over 2 specific items here, and my copy has the SAS 114 letter inserted, and hopefully yours does as well. As a separate document, would that be the case? Yeah. Perfect.
Mine does.
Whose doesn't? I'm sorry?
Mine does.
Okay. All right. And of course, we're going to talk about the audited financial statements. You know, I was discussing this Statement of Auditing Standard 114 letter earlier today. I had another board presentation earlier this morning for a Joint Powers Authority. And as always, I get to the part where we discuss the 2 specific items that are not included in the audit report that are required to be included in here, and that's whether or not we have any disagreements with management or difficulties that we encountered in the audit. And I actually got a question from this governing board regarding that and how important that those 2 disclosures are. And I have to say that at the point where we actually have to tell you that we're having difficulties or that we're disagreeing with your business management over the audit, then that's a real problem. And so it's a real positive And it should not be taken lightly when we say that we do not have difficulties and we did not disagree on any aspects of the audit. That's significantly important. So I just want to make sure that I'm able to emphasize that. I thought it was an interesting question. Now, we've talked about the audit report in the past, and I always like to remind my audience that we provide reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. It's a higher level view, not total assurance, because we don't look at every single transaction. With that said, as a governing board member, you're interested in the outcome of the audit. So, as always, we have the one page in the audit report that we summarize the audit, and that's on page 87. Well, this is really good. If you can scoot through there. Boy, that's... I think actually you need to go down a little further, please. While we're doing that, I'm going to just let you know that one of the big changes in the current year is, and every year, we have to implement some sort of GASB statement, or I should say you as a district need to implement some sort of GASB statement. This year it was GASB statement number 65. And how that affects your financial statements is we actually had to restate your financial statements. We identify that as an emphasis of matter in the opinion, which I talk about in the very first, the unmodified. But that restatement is actually on page 61, if you're interested in looking at that, and it's for a couple $1 million. And what it relates to is the GASB now is looking at issuance costs associated with some sort of bond issuance of that sort of matter. And in the past, we used to what we call amortize it or spread that cost over a certain number of years. The GASB now requires us to count that or report that as a current period expense. So as a result, on page 61, as a result of the implementation of this GASB, you'll see that we've restated your beginning balance. So the starting point for your audit actually changed. So I'll start here. Once again, we have an unmodified opinion. And of course, if you hear me talk about an opinion other than unmodified, then you really want to start asking me some questions of why that's the case. Unmodified opinion, we identified neither any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. And when we're talking about the two of them, the material weakness is the big problem, because really what that's saying is that we identified an internal control that we do not believe would detect that you have a material misstatement. So if we had reported that you had a material weakness, then chances are we would have had to adjust your books as well. So what I'm telling you is we did not have any adjustments here. That's a positive. Federal awards, as always, a couple programs that we had to test based on the number of expenditures in those programs. We did not identify any particular issues as far as material weaknesses and significant deficiencies related to the internal controls, unmodified opinion as well. Lastly, with the state awards, a number of programs, a lot of new programs this year because of your change in your funding model, the LCFF, the acronym that you're very familiar with at this point. For all the programs, save for one, we issue you an unmodified opinion. The program that we had an issue with was what we call the unduplicated local count funding model. And I have to say that probably half of my reports this year had an issue with this. Why is that? Obviously, it's information it really has not been provided a lot of clarity at the state level, because you also have federal statutes that you're dealing with here that don't necessarily align with the language of the state statutes. So that's one part of the problem. In fact, the state has already recognized that this is such a huge issue at a statewide level that they're basically going to eliminate the finding as long as your new count in 14-15 is greater than your 13-14 number. So that's a positive, but that's an acknowledgement on their part that the statute probably didn't have enough clarity in it when it was put into the audit process. So this is not actually a very uncommon comment this year. I want to make sure you understand that. And then lastly, we always have some other issues that we identify during the course of the audit that we want to call to your attention, opportunities for improvements. and those begin on page 94. All of these comments that we have, if we have any comments, understand that we are always going to follow up in the preceding year to see what the status is. With that, I'm here to answer any questions you have on your your audited financial statements.
Based on your comment just now, two things. On page 95, there's an observation under payroll time cards. That was in a FCMAT report in 2011. It was in your audit in 2012, 2013, and now it's back again in 2014. And in the very last line, you say, we will review the status of current year comments during our next audit engagement. I think you just said that. Who do you review it with, and why would something last for 4 years? And no comment.
No, you'll have to, you're saying that we had this comment for the past 4 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Plus the FCMAT report.
Right.
The same
In the
comment.
FCMAT report, we review it every year just to see whether or not it continues to be an issue. If it continues to be an issue, then we'll continue to report it as an issue. Now, with that being said, is there some sort of mitigating control that would change the audit's perspective on this? Of course there may be, and that's why every year we follow up on it and look to see whether or not there's some sort of corresponding or complementing control that mitigates the risk we associate with this. If we don't find that to be the case, then we would continue to report it. The district has to look at it from their standpoint and say, well, what would mitigate this risk or eliminate this risk? Sometimes we have comments where it's easy for us to say that there needs to be a segregation of duties, but your response would be, well, what you're telling me is I need to hire somebody else. And obviously, those decisions are made because of a fiscal issue. This year is really, like I say, we're repeating it because it continues to be the case. As simple as that. And we'll continue to report it that way, so that way you're aware that this is an ongoing issue from our perspective.
Okay, and then...
Would you like me?
Well, let me just finish this one more question. You will review the status during the next audit engagement. You review it and, like, I don't see any comments about what you found last year. So did you review what you found last year, and then you don't make any comments here in writing to us?
No. This part of the audit report is what we call the management letter. It's intended to be in this format. This is actually the required format from the State Controller's Office. It doesn't require a response. You may choose, because this is your report, to put in a response in there to these comments. But what we do, once again, is in this section here, we look to see the issue in the current year, whether or not that's an ongoing issue, and if so, we'll repeat it. The other comments that precede it, those that would relate to the financial statements, federal awards, or state awards, those have a specific format that not only require you to respond and have a corrective action plan, but in the next year, we have to actually identify whether or not you've implemented the specific action plan that you identified in the previous year.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Tay.
Well, we are very much aware. As you understand, we take this as our report card. And so we have had this finding for a long time, and basically what it is from is we don't get the original timesheets from the sites that have the actual signature on them from the employee, and it's very cumbersome to get that. We get a summary, and that basically is what the finding is about. We have been through 2 financial systems since 2011, so we've been kind of busy with that, but we know that this is a priority, and every time they have it in the audit, for us, it's an embarrassment that we haven't had taken care of it. So we hope that you will not see this in 15, 16 years.
I just see it that it says it could cause problems. We could have people falsifying records.
And that's why it's there. That's exactly why it's there.
Dr. Paz.
And I had the same similar concern of even when you look at the ASB issues. I know we've had that in the past when I've been on the board. And I think that that's one of the things that, for me as a board member, when we look at those things, I look at trends, right? And these are always, as observations in an audit, opportunities for someone to do something they're not supposed to. And so I say it's like the canary in the mine, right? Here it is. It's telling us we should be paying more attention to this. So I would likewise like to see that we implement something in that, although I understand your point. These are observations and recommendations. It is up to us to respond to them as both the board and as staff. But I would like for us to kind of come back to some of these and not just leave them at the table when we're done with the audit. I do want to see some, what are we going to do with the recommendations? Are we going to implement some of these? Are we not? I mean, I look at some of these in terms of just ticket sales are simple things to do. Like, here's an opening number, here's the closing number. You have a roll of tickets. Is it closed? Is it not? Is it locked up? Is it not? I used to sell tickets. Worked in a movie theater.
These are all things schools have been told since I was a principal 20 years ago. So it's not new, and I would predict in every year I've either been a superintendent or a principal, this has been an audit finding.
Yeah.
This exact one.
And what we do is we require,
It's unless we have one person who is going to do it at every site, I don't know that we'll ever be able to get to a point where every single person remembers, oh gosh, I have to, when I'm...
I understand that,
Yeah.
but I think when my point is we get to the point in time where we minimize as much risk as possible.
Sure.
And my viewpoint as a board member, one of the things that I don't necessarily like to see is this come back and continue to come back and not feel like we've done something. That's one point. The second point is that as a board member and someone who doesn't want to see it come back in a very negative way in towards our school district. I mean, we all read newspapers. I recently read of another school district where this turned out to be a big issue because someone was systematically using their position to steal.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't want us to get to the point in time where we don't take it. I understand that it becomes an issue every year because we have new people working and we have a lot of volunteers and there are a lot of parents. But at the same time, I think we need to take it as seriously as possible to mitigate the risk, to get to a point in time where we're all happy. Nothing. I know I've been through audits in my own job. You never eliminate it to a 0%. It's just mitigating to a point in time where your internal controls are in such a place where you're trying to get rid of as much of it as possible. It's like air and statistics, right? That's what I would like to see.
Well, I think it's very reasonable for us to have conversations with both Santa Barbara High School and Goleta Valley administrative teams and get them to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
and we do recommend that they go to the FCMAT training every year. They get a manual every year, and Lacey Preston, who is a CPA, and she's our internal auditor, goes out and hand trains some of these new people who come in and tell them how to collect money and how to use the ticket books. So we are out there educating, and we do it every September. The FCMAT goes out, and we will give these school sites the audit finding and tell them they need to work on these issues. And if they have any questions, they contact Lacey.
Ms. Parker?
Okay, first of all, I want to say congratulations, because there's one audit finding for 13-14, and this isn't the first time we've only had one, but it is great when we only have one, and so I really appreciate that. And I think I have sort of a structural issue, and that is in that finding.
That would be the state finding and related to unduplicated count?
Yes.
Okay.
And let me find, so that's 2014-001. Page 90, and then 91, 92. And so where it says corrective action plan, is that something that the district has provided?
That's the response to
Okay. Because I think that one of the things, and that's a change in wording, in some past years, and I can't remember if it was last year, if this
That's a
is
very
new
good
this year.
observation, because that is a change from
Yeah,
in the
because
last couple of
normally
years.
it's district response, and so it can be,
Right.
it's really clear to board members that the district has responded, and that this is not something that's coming from the auditors.
Right. No, this is an actual required headlight, for everybody. It's required to be a component of the finding. So all of those bolded copy there is exactly what it needs to say. So you're right. It used to say district response.
And so that's a change, and so
Right.
I guess as long as we're aware that that is the district response, and I think that what would be helpful, and this may need to be a separate document, is when they look at the historical, since clearly there's specific language and things go in certain places, when they're looking at historical audit findings that have not been corrected, if there were a district corrective action plan for those as well, that maybe we get as a separate cover, so that board members know that we're not just letting it slide year after year, that there's something that we're attempting to do to correct them, then I think that would be helpful.
If I can just turn your attention, on page 92, you'll see on the facing page, it's 93, and it says summary schedule of prior audit findings. Had there been any audit findings in there, they would be replicated. So what you'll see in 1415 is this comment that you're looking for, 2014-1, will reside or find itself on that summary schedule of prior audit findings. And then there'll be another spot that says implemented or not. And so that will be your identification that we've looked at it in the new year and looked to see whether or not you made the necessary changes and whether or not the corrective action plan has been implemented. Since you didn't have that finding in the previous year, that's why it's not on here.
Right. And so what do you call the section that's on observations and recommendations?
We call that the management letter.
Okay, so what you, say on page 94 is what I'm getting at.
Yes, that's what we call the management letter.
Management letter.
Oftentimes, this is a separate document that's remitted similar to the SAS 114 letter that we spoke about earlier. However, the State Controller's Office required format for submission of the report is to have this included in the audit report itself, so it doesn't come in as two separate documents. That way, they don't lose it in their review process.
So I think it would be helpful for board members to see a corrective action plan for this section as a separate document, but that would be great. But otherwise, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I learned meeting with Conrad, is that there's a difference between findings and observations. Findings demand a response and plan. Observations are observations. For instance, people who write checks at schools need ASB approval. It seems very simple. Don't write a check until you have it. I mean, that's pretty clear English. I had forwarded or Conrad had forwarded one question to you for me. It's technical, but...
Right, and I provided him a response, and I never heard back, so I
didn't either. So.
Okay. We'll follow up on that with him. Because, like I say, I did respond.
Yeah, I knew.
I did respond to his question and his inquiry, and I haven't heard back, and that was a couple days ago.
Okay.
So
there was just a long-term obligation that is in our second, our unaudited.
Right.
But I couldn't find it in your audit. And we have a PARS 1 and a PARS 2, and I couldn't find PARS 1 in.
Right.
It's probably hidden in there someplace.
Well, and I provided him some insight into that, but like I say, I haven't heard back on the clarity on that, so.
Okay. One thing I'd just like to bring to the board's attention, because it may have something to do with a future agenda item I asked for, and I think you all know it, but on page 46, outstanding general obligation bonds, just take a second to look at those totals out there long after I'm gone. But there's a huge obligation down the pike for bonds and bond payments. So it's just something to look at. And then the description of the bonds on page 47 and 48. I love this part of your report. I mean, I think I told you this last year.
Yes, you did.
It's the best part. I mean, it really explains what it is. I mean, there's no hiding it. It's there.
No, and I'll be honest with you, I appreciate that. I actually had a call from an underwriter for a new client, and they didn't like this because they thought we were providing too much information. And my response was, well, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to provide information, and if you don't have this information to see the underlying transaction, then how do you know what you really have? So I think it's necessary as well. So I appreciate you seeing the value in it.
Yeah, the only one comment I would make is on 47, on the obligation 2010 Series A, you combine convertible capital appreciation and convertible capital appreciation bonds as into one lump sum. I don't know if you do that, if that's how you have to do it, or can you ever put out both?
Well, we certainly could break it out separately, but this is a little unusual because you usually don't see a capital appreciation and a convertible capital appreciation. Oftentimes you'll see a current and a capital appreciation bond together. This one is really unusual. Yeah. But we can certainly, if you want more clarity on that, we can certainly break it down to the level where you see what the estimated payback or debt obligation related to both of those are.
Yeah, because it would help in my thinking as to, because one of those in my mind can't be called and others can be called. Right. So knowing what the differentiation is would have helped me a little bit. I know what it is, but it seems for the audit purposes, I'd like to see it.
Sure.
I would also agree, because that would help us in a future agenda item if we were to come back and look at it as a possible area to change.
Okay, I tagged that page.
Yeah. So, any other questions? And this is a document that we don't have to approve. I think it is just given to us, right? We can't approve it because we can't.
Right. It's presented. It's required to be presented to the governing board by January 31st. So we met that obligation.
Yeah. We can't disapprove an audit. We can question it. We can't disapprove it. Thank you very much, and thank you for waiting.
No problem. Take care.
Thank you, Royce.
Aren't we having fun? H9, report on Medi-Cal reimbursement programs.
I'd like to ask Ms. Rodriguez to come forward for her 3-minute presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Day will be talking about the MAW, which is the Medi-Cal Administrative Activities, and I will be talking about the Local Education Agency Medi-Cal Billing Option, or LBO. LBO allows Santa Barbara Unified School District to be reimbursed for the cost of providing selected health services to Medi-Cal eligible students and, when applicable, their families. The program was established in 1993 by the California Department of Health Services in conjunction with the California Department of Education. It creates the opportunity for SBUSD to receive reimbursements for students who are on an IEP and are eligible to receive Medi-Cal insurance. The services include health and mental health screenings, assessments, treatments, and related transportation services. In addition, under the LBO umbrella, we can receive reimbursements for the Targeted Case Management Program, or TCM. TCM consists of case management services that assist Medi-Cal eligible individuals within specific targeted groups to access needed medical, social, educational, and other services. These services components include needs assessments, settings, needs objectives, individual services planning, service scheduling, crisis assistant planning, and periodic evaluation of services effectiveness. LBO reimbursements are restricted and supplement existing services schools provide to meet the health needs of their students. According to the rules and regulations of the program, we have established a collaborative group which distributes the funds in an appropriate manner. We have partnered with Leader Services for our LBO program. Their personalized support, easy-to-use technology, and years of experience has helped school districts across the U.S. securely capture nearly 21 million transactions, recovering over $1.4 billion. At this time, Mr. Tay will talk about the MAW.
So Medi-Cal Administrative Activities, or MAW, facilitates Medi-Cal reimbursements for school staff that provide services in support of our state's Medi-Cal program. Our sites know our students best and can steer the students to the services that are offered by the federal government, such as medical, vision, dental, and mental health. The way districts are reimbursed for referring these families to these services were by documenting their time during a one-week period every quarter. That's the old way that the data was collected. Now it's on a random moment time survey or study. This is RMTS in case you want some more acronyms in school finance, which means at a specific moment in time, and we're talking minutes, are referring a student to those services. So what they do is they say, okay, on December 12th, we're at 1:35 p.m., write down as many times you've referred a student to these services. And that's how they pretty much, every quarter you do that, and that's how they determine how much you're going to be reimbursed. And the reimbursements are based on the salaries and benefits of the time survey participant. So receiving these reimbursements are still extremely slow. Medi-Cal, not so much, but MA, it's extremely slow. However, once these funds have been received, 15% are returned to the staff that generate the funds. So our staff gets rewarded for generating the income. However, it just seems like it takes so long to get the money. We just got, I think, second quarter of 11-12. So that's how far we're behind in the MA funding. And the MA funding is unrestricted federal funds.
You just said two things. The old way evidently took a lot longer per staff person.
Yes, because you had to be trained in the MA, and during that week you were just that's all you were doing was referring children during that specific time.
And now you're saying it takes randomly a minute?
Well, randomly they say at this particular moment in time you will be writing down what if the services that you're recommending for these students. So in other words, they give you like a week's notice and they say, at 1:30 p.m. on December 12th, you will be doing this time survey. And so hopefully you're with a child that you're offering those services to.
And it's random, though.
It's random.
And so I know that the 15% was an administrative decision by Eric Smith. Is the rationale still the same for somebody who does something randomly for a minute versus the old method, still an appropriate percentage?
Well, it's just the time. It's just what they do is they take that time and they figure that's how much you're doing over the whole course of the quarter, not just a minute. They multiply. I don't know exactly how it's figured, but it's not just they're doing 1 minute's work and then another group of people were doing a week's work. They were taking that week's worth and saying, okay, if you did this in a week, you must be doing this over this much over a quarter. Well, now they're taking, if you were doing this in 1 minute or 2 minutes, now you must be doing this over a quarter, this many minutes, and then we'll reimburse you for that time. It's the moment in time. It's not necessarily how much work you're doing, if that makes sense.
Well, it
doesn't make sense, but this is law.
Was it before that it was the amount of, 15% was because of the amount of work they were doing, not for the amount of work they were doing for reporting, not for the amount of work they were doing for the job. And now they don't have as much reporting to do?
Well, I don't know. I think that for 15% still stands because the way they figure it, our mom money shouldn't drop that much. If people are still, during that random moment in time, still generating and offering these students these services, we should be getting the same amount of time. It's just, I guess it's just less documentation for the whole process. Maybe it will speed it up. Let's knock on wood.
Well, was Medi-Cal behind? I remember a petition I got that we were asked to sign urging the legislature or whoever to speed up the process and not eliminate, I mean, I guess we asked for a certain amount of money, but we don't get it because they readjust it for some reason.
That's
and
correct.
There was a petition going around. I don't think we ever acted on it, but we got it, asking us to support it, to urge them to not be so selective and not to trust the districts.
It was a request to petition Senators Boxer and Feinstein, and all the professional organizations in California did so.
Has that been changed? Has there been a reaction to that? And is it now a better system?
I think it's subject each and every year. It's one of those things that's very close and near to the federal government's budget knife.
Okay. How much money do we gain from Medi-Cal and MA?
Well, I can answer that. Medi-Cal, on a pretty decent year, it's about $230,000. MA, the last MA we received, which you saw at the year end, because we got some money in 13-14, I believe was $194,000. But remember, when the city cut our crossing guards, that's how we funded our share of the crossing guards. So all those years that we have not gotten MA, we've been handling Medi-Cal or the crossing guards out of no money. So it's not like we have an abundance of money now. We're just, paying for our crossing guards right now. Not doesn't take up the whole entire money, but it takes up a chunk of it.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to 2 items on the agenda, and I'll make it fast. One is probably more of a comment. And Kate, you had E8, I believe, was it?
Do you want me to start with E8?
Yes,
or-
E8 was approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between Santa Barbara Unified School District, Regents of University of California, Santa Barbara, on behalf of the Graverts Graduate School of Education.
And that's essentially to extend the MOU with the Harding University Partnership for another 5 years. And my concern is that I just don't have enough information, because when we originally put this partnership in place, and I think UCSB is terrific, they've done amazing things, but one of our intentions was really to raise the level of academics at Harding. And when we were monitoring it with an API, there was 1 year where Harding showed growth, and that was it. And so when I look at Harding, I'm going, okay, what are the metrics to determine whether or not this is a successful partnership? And of course, there's the play of International Baccalaureate in there as well. There's the play of there's been principal turnover. And so, I mean, I really feel like the MOU as it stands does not, I'm concerned that we may be harming students there rather than helping them. And I want to be careful about that. And so I just feel like I can't vote on that in any sort of knowledgeable way, at least on a 5-year basis, without understanding, is there some data that shows that this really helps the students at Harding School? And if so, can we, please take a look at that before we vote on it. So I would ask that we actually postpone this item.
Mr. Handel, do you have any comment?
Obviously, we're going to have to include an evaluation plan. If I could just say, the former method of testing that we had, the California state standards, wasn't really conducive to the instruction that was being brought forth and the learning that was going on at Harding. As you know, their method of instruction was a little more holistic, and the fill in the bubbles, rote memory wasn't really the forte of the students in the PYP/IB program at Harding. I think the Smarter Balance assessment will perhaps be the best, a better assessment of the knowledge of the students at Harding School and the experiences they've had over the last 2 years. The staff as a whole has been able to withstand a lot of changes, a lot of transition at their school in the last few years, and they've stayed quite committed to the PYP/IB methodology. I would think that the smarter balance would actually, no pun intended, balance the scales for them in terms of the assessments. Their students, again, I believe will have a better opportunity to demonstrate what they know with these new assessments. If you go to Harding, which I know you have, and I know you all visit Harding, to see some of the projects that the students engage in, they're able to produce, you'll see a much more accurate depiction of what they're learning. I realize that the MOU that we have in front of you, it is for 5 years, and I got to tell you, as a principal, I was often concerned about comparing my previous school, McKinley, and the growth that we were seeing at McKinley as compared to Harding. But I honestly believe that, again, that the old method of testing and the California state standards put them at a disadvantage. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what students from Harding are going to be able to show us in this new format of testing, because I got to tell you, their teachers have been really instrumental in the implementation of the Common Core standards. They've essentially been doing or applying the Common Core methodology of instruction that they're able to share now with their colleagues in the same grade level. And it's been really exciting for them and exciting for me to see that their confidence with their colleagues has grown due to the fact that we're moving to Common Core state standards. So I realize that the 5-year commitment might be a bit of a jump, but perhaps we could tweak it with a stronger evaluation piece, and we can come back to the board every year with an analysis of a program of choice, and so that we can understand how they're progressing, because I do want to compare them to the other programs that we have. You know, we have Montessori, we have the core knowledge. I think these next few years will give us a more accurate understanding of what's going on at Harding.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of, there's community academy core knowledge kids that go into the Cumbra. Harding feeds into the Cumbra. The Adams Montessori program feeds into the Cumbra. And I'm looking at, there are many other metrics out there, and it could be, let's look at junior high placement. And look at this point, you could be looking at San Marcos placement. Are these kids, and really looking specifically at the UCSB partnership rather than International Baccalaureate. I mean, there's an interplay there, but I think my concern with the MOU is it really looks very similar to the first MOU. Right. And is the interaction with UCSB, has that been really examined to such an extent where it's like, this is working, this isn't working, what's in the best interest of kids here? We need to adapt the MOU. And I think I'd like to see that we've looked at a variety of measures, not just any tests in academic testing. Right. But if we've looked at a variety of measures, and I think the difficulty there is, of course, that there's been administrative turnover. Right. But I absolutely know that I'm sure that the faculty there have a sense of that as well, that they can share in the discussion on that. So I think I just feel like I need more information.
Understandable. What kind of information exactly? Are you looking at placement data, the junior highs and the high schools?
Placement data, attendance, how does this compare to students at similar schools? Okay. And then I think it's site feedback on the UCSB partnership as it exists. Is it, because I think that there's a lot of benefit to it, and I just want to be sure that we're doing it in a way that's actually progressing student academics.
Got it. Thank you.
Dr. Paz?
Yeah, and I would imagine, having that partnership with UCSB and the Grad School of Ed, that there are a number of research projects that happen on campus based on the students there. And, that also helps in answering my fellow board member's question, because I think And that doesn't always necessarily come back to the board level, may come to you as an administrator, but I think as board members, when we look at it within the context of looking at this as a partnership that goes beyond just the research side of it, feeds into whether this partnership is really truly benefiting the students, and that I would suggest would be also a helpful thing to look at, or even some summary of results or findings that they've found that work. And I'm sure there's projects going on that both involve students and teachers at that point in time.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
E13, Emilio, just a question. And thank you for answering my email questions. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
This is the approval of the early literacy pilot at McKinley Elementary School and Monroe Elementary School. It's a new program. And on this proposal, it's two things caught my attention. One, it says that preliminary discussions have centered upon available technology to ensure successful implementation. Both sites have already undertaken the process of identifying needs for additional technology and purchasing devices using site funds. Looking forward to this being a success and going down the road, what changes in technology are going to be needed for this specific program?
No changes in technology specifically, just more access to devices. And so you'll notice that, well, you won't be able to notice, they're purchasing Chromebooks so that they have access to the internet. And because we're looking at students from TK to second or third grade that'll be part of this pilot. And if we find it successful through an evaluation, we can see purchasing more Chromebooks going forward if we go through our other evaluation as well, through our one-to-one evaluation with the one-to-one schools. But the devices are a critical piece to this particular program, as they are any other program that students need access to. This particular program, Imagine Learning, the students need to be on the program 20 to 30 minutes each day in order to have the program show some results. That's the recommended amount of time. So students obviously are going to need access to devices throughout the day, every single day. So that would be the only change in technology, if you will.
A whole new supply, going forward to expanding a whole new learning process of Chromebooks versus all the iPads that.
Right.
It wouldn't matter if they were on iPads or Chromebooks. It's the web base that's important.
Correct.
The device, it's agnostic to the device.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. So iPads, I mean, if a school already has a supply of iPads.
Yeah.
They do.
They won't have to go out and buy a supply of Chromebooks.
And Monroe didn't have iPads, so they made a decision to pilot Chromebooks.
Okay, that gets to gut to my question, is that
Yes, I apologize.
it's not a whole new slew of technology.
No.
Okay, that's, and just to point out, I asked Mr. Handel, assuming it might go district-wide, what would the cost be? And I think your answer was like $350,000 as a rough estimate.
That's correct.
And, I guess over the years, we've had an awful lot of new programs that keep adding to the budget, and that's just another $350,000 down the road possibly if this is a success, which I hope it is.
As do
But
I.
just to alert the board that this kind of thing starts out small, but all of a sudden, becomes big. So I hope it's a success, but again, there's a monetary task to it, and I guess in the way we now have LCAP, we have to make that decision whether we want to spend the money there or someplace else.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah, there's not a whole bunch of new bucket of money.
No.
No, but we are required at this particular point to demonstrate to our community how we're providing early literacy instruction for TK, for students who meet that definition. And currently, we do not have a program.
Well, I went to the websites you showed me, and you might want to share those websites with the rest of the board.
Will do.
Because there's a superintendent that gives a statement about it for 22,000 kids, I think 80% in need, and he's very highly in favor of it. So you might want to send those same links to the rest of the board?
I will do.
Okay. I will move approval of the early literacy pilot at McKinley Elementary School and, oh, we don't need, this is just, yes, we do, at elementary school and Monroe Elementary Schools.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
That takes us to coming events. Do we have any coming events other than the open houses? Okay, no, okay. Future agenda items. I'm going to pass out the list of what I put together as all the cumulative future agenda items that came from previous boards, or previous meetings. I've got extra copies up here if anybody wants one as we discuss them. And the question I ask, are these all appropriate for the future? Many of them I have when it's going to be updated per Dr. Cash, the current status in some cases, and just a schedule of events. The question I've asked under future joint meetings, we have charter school boards. Monique asked in 1211, and Galena, Montecito, Hope, and Cold Spring School District, she asked, and I talked to Monique, and she said those weren't requests, they were just ideas. And the question I have, and I asked her this question, do we really want those two things for the future?
Future joint meeting?
For future joint meetings with charter schools and the other districts. Monique said, delete them. No comments, no thoughts? Okay.
I feel like it's hard to scramble to get the joint meetings going that we have going, so it's hard to add more on top of it. That's
That
just
was
what
her
I'm thinking
comment.
about it, yeah.
I'm going to delete them. Okay, and then, again, if there's any immediate changes to any of the ones on the list, or if you come up with any ideas for the City of Santa Barbara and the joint meeting coming up in 2015, obviously let Dr. Cash know. And if, at this point, are there any other items that anybody would like to add to this list? Ms. Parker?
Because the list is not long enough. We have, I believe, the Civic Center's review of schools as community center, Civic Center use permits update, that it looks like it's hopefully going to be at our next meeting. One thing that ties in with that is the new law in 2015 that groups can serve alcohol on our school sites with a permit from the district.
That's going to come forward as a separate item.
That's going to come forward as
Yes,
a separate item? So it's not going to be part of the Civic Center use?
Because I'm not
or-
certain we'll be able to get that on January 27th in
Okay.
talking with staff.
All right, well, I mean, I know that it will increase the opportunities for use for our school sites. So it is something that I hope that we will see soon,
Yes.
at least for discussion.
Legal counsel is working on it now.
Okay. And then the other item on my list was Board Policy 6142.93, and that is on science instruction. And what we have is sort of a boilerplate CSBA language on science instruction and
Sign construction?
Science.
Oh, science, okay.
Instruction. Science instruction. Sounds like construction. But I really think that we need to have language in there about lab safety and lab safety training. There continue to be accidents at schools and museum sites based on lab. Typically, it's the use of methanol, but certainly there are other lab issues as well. There is a separate board policy that deals a little bit about hazardous materials training for teachers, but for our staff and for our students, I really think that we, districts in general, without having addressed this specifically, we're in a great deal of danger of liability if there's an accident. So I hope that we can look and see if there are any, I know that there aren't model policies out of CSBA, but there may be other districts across the U.S. that have put something in place that can protect us and can protect our teachers and students.
Okay. Ms. Idelson.
Maybe this would tie in with the request for table of high school courses that are currently being taught. I see it's, the response there says in progress, but also we, as a board, have never gotten the AP test results from this prior year and how they play out as far as across the whole district.
So the AP test results.
Right.
For 2013-14?
Right.
Dr. Drawdy will get those to you this week.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Paz, did you? I have one that I don't know what the answer to it is, but I'd like to have somebody maybe give us guidance on it. Is there a chance of refunding the capital appreciation bonds, pros and cons, and if that's even possible? The idea that Stockton saved $71 million for its taxpayers is enticing. If it's possible, maybe we can have our advisor give us a quick thumbnail of, is that a possibility?
Likewise.
Anything else? I thank you very much, and I think we will now adjourn.
Oh, you forgot to discuss the facilities workshop request by Dr. Evenstein.
I reopened the meeting. Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
thank
because
you.
I know he's going to call me.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Evenstein had an article in the paper indicating that he would like to have a group of citizens come and talk to us about portables. We have a community meeting that we were going to have just to go over the whole facilities plan, and I just think it'd be a workshop environment would be much better, and the date that Lanny came up with is the 17th of February. And I don't know if that's possible or not, but Dr. Cash, I think, will have a survey done among you to see if that's a good time. It'll be evening probably, similar to the workshop on special ed.
Could we do it in this setting as opposed to a school cafeteria?
Yeah, that would in this setting, but not in a 3-minute
Yeah.
Q&A.
Right. No.
Yeah, in a workshop
Right, yeah.
environment
Absolutely,
where we
interact with all speakers.
You know, I think it's an opportunity for the board to look at the plans, and maybe they can be available, that the board can come down individually and look at the plans. I don't know if they're on display someplace or if they're around someplace, but an idea for us to talk about anything that we've heard on campuses, have the community tell us what they think about the portables, if that's the issue, and also talk about the current status of the plans. Okay? Is that okay?
Perfect.
Now I'll close it.
Thank you. Sorry, I just knew that question would